Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be around the world, and welcome to Splendid Isolation number 247. As always, I'm going to start us off with a tune.
Take up the white man's burden, send forth the best ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives' need, to wait in heavy harness on flooded folk and wild. Your new gods sullen peoples have devil and have child. Take up the white man's burden, in patience to abide, to veil the threat of terror and check the show of pride. By open speech and simple, 100 times made vain, to seek another's profit and work another's gain. Take up the white man's burden, the savage wars of peace. Fill full the mouth of famine and bid the sickness cease. And when your goal is nearest, the end for the sword, what's love that heed and folly? Bring all your hopes to naught. Take up the white man's burden, no tawdry rule of kings, but toil of serf and sweeper, the tale of common things. The ports ye shall not enter, the roads ye shall not tread. Go make them with your living and mark them with your dead. Take up the white man's burden and reap his old reward. The blame of those ye better, the hate of those ye guard. The cry of those ye humor are slowly towards the light. Why brought ye us from bondage, a loved Egyptian night? Take up the white man's burden, ye dare not stoop to less, nor call too loud on freedom to cloak your weariness. By all ye cry or whisper, by all ye leave or do, the silent, sullen people shall wail gods and you. Take up the white man's burden, have done with childish days, the lightly profit laurel, the easy ungrudged praise. Come thou to search your manhood through all of thankless years. No age would give what wisdom the judgment of your peers. Take off the white man's burden through all of thankless years.
And that was, of course, the excellent Chris Gard. If you like good music, please go and check out Chris Gard's YouTube channel. He also has some nice modern stuff on there, as well as traditional tunes based on Kipling's poems, like that one. Good evening. I think we're not going to get Mitch this evening. Mitch has sent me a message that he's going to take a break for the night, I think. So welcome to my guests, Mercia Natterman and Aaron Hook. How are you going this evening, guys?
I'm going very well, thank you.
No, I'm all right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Nice to see you again, Atman. Atman, did you still want to do that thing about the Arctic explorers?
Yeah, I do.
All right. Well, can you do it on Wednesday? This
Yeah,
Wednesday?
I can.
All right, guys. So our history stream on Wednesday will be about the I can't remember the guy's name now. What's his name, Atman? Remind me. It's just completely gone out of my head.
Well, from the Franklin expedition.
The Franklin expedition. Thank you very much. It was Franklin whose name I couldn't remember. Wednesday history stream this week, guys, will be about the Franklin expedition, which was 2 Royal Navy ships sent into the the Arctic, I beg your pardon, in the 1840s, and they totally disappeared. But we won't talk about any of that anymore now because it would rather spoil the stream for Wednesday. But I know Atman's wanted to do that as a subject for quite a while, so we're going to do that one on Wednesday. It should be good. Pretty interesting story. Template UK of Great Britain and Northern Ireland says, "Did I see the veteran on Good Morning Britain? No, I didn't. Does anyone know anything about that?
Is he the one who questioned whether it was worth fighting World War II?
I believe so. Yeah, I didn't watch the clip. I'm aware of it though. I couldn't watch it, not with the Del Rey in it.
Yeah, I did hear something about that on X, on Twitter, and yeah, I mean, I think it's a legitimate point that if you were to look at most of the World War II veterans today, they would almost all be regarded as far right. They would almost all be regarded as racist by the left. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying they really were, but the left would regard them that way, just because those were the views of the time, and that was even more true of the First World War veterans, who I was lucky enough to meet a few of when I was a teenager. So yeah, I mean, if I was, I know for a fact that people from my family who fought in World War II would not believe the state of Britain today, and would absolutely have regarded it as a waste of time to fight the Germans and the Italians and the Japanese to produce the shithole that is modern Britain. And I don't mean that in terms of the British people, obviously. I'm talking about the millions and millions of people who shouldn't be there who are in Britain today, and many of our politicians and leadership. But what do you guys think about that?
Well, there's a video people can watch by Zuma Historian where he goes into accounts from a book called, I believe it's called The Unknown Warriors by Nicholas.
Really good.
Brinkley.
Yeah, I watched that video, and it's really good and well worth looking up. Good suggestion.
Yeah, and it's like he interviews. I think he asks like 150 veterans for their opinion. He doesn't get responses from all of them. But of the ones who responded to him, he said, well, some of them didn't seem to understand the assignment and they just talked about the war. Some of them did talk about how they felt about it since, and almost all of them were negative. And he goes into quite a few accounts where quite a few of them like specifically talk about immigration in certain unstream friendly terms. The thing is, I mean, like we have where I live, we have a lot of DFLs, right? A lot down from London's, and you can ask them, you're like, oh, why have you moved away from London? And they'll give you like all these vague answers where they're like, oh, well, you know, London's not the same anymore. And it's like, well, why isn't it the same? Like, what changed? Oh, well, it's just not the same. You know, crime's bad. It's like, crime by who? And they kind of dodge around it. Whereas, you know, if you go by the accounts in this book, you know, seemingly your average World War II veteran is a lot more open about the specific issue at hand. So yeah, I mean, some people have said, well, he doesn't strictly bring up this, that, or the other. Zuma Historian has a YouTube channel taken down. That's a shame. And it's like the odds that you're actually going to be able to get a veteran on the TV who isn't going to harbour views like this are quite difficult at the best of times. So yeah, I mean, I didn't see the clip, but I couldn't watch it. I've seen enough clips like that over the years. I don't really want to watch any more of them. But they're pretty sad.
Yeah, these people fought for Britain, not a globalist Blairite Britain or world, or that's basically what they fought for, isn't it? You know, they fought for a Britain they knew,
Totally.
not a Britain it would become.
Totally agree with you. I find it very difficult to watch modern politicians when they're talking about Armistice Day, Remembrance Day, because they just lie. They'll say, "Oh, they fought for liberal values and fairness, and even to save the Jews," or all bullshit, all absolute lies. They fought for Britain because they were patriotic people who wanted Britain to be on top. I'm sorry, that's what they fought for.
Yeah, there's that bit from that Bowden speech where it's like, "Oh, Tony Blair would have you think that they went over the top for diversity."
Yep, exactly right. And of course, no such thing. I mean, you couldn't be further from the truth. And I was lucky because when I was a young guy, because I'm an old bastard, I met quite a few First World War veterans. And I would say because I'm interested in it, I've probably met hundreds of World War II veterans. And I never met one who was not a patriotic, old-fashioned sort of bloke for the most part. They weren't interested in diversity. They were against mass third world immigration, like the majority of the British public have always been. Every time they've been asked, they've been against it. The Conservatives used to get in because they would lie every election and say, "Oh, we'll reduce it," and of course they never would. But they'd put it up. But yeah, I mean, when you see those very, very few these days, real World War II veterans who are left, just remember that as far as the left is concerned, including people like that scumbag two-tier Keir Starmer, who is supposedly the Prime Minister, they would regard them as far right and racist.
Can I ask you to show your history stream for a moment? Have you ever done any history streams on any VC winners?
Yes, we have. In fact, and happily, we've got Aaron Hook here today, and I think we did one on Rorke's Drift, didn't we, Aaron?
Yeah, we did one on Martin. We did on one of your history streams on Colour Sergeant Booth.
Yes, and Aaron here is actually a relative of Henry Hook, who got the VC at Rorke's Drift. And he was nothing like the guy in the movie, by the way. He was actually a very good soldier. But yeah, Aaron's a relative of Henry Hook VC. So we've certainly covered a number of people who've won the VC one way or another. But in particular, we've done streams on Rorke's Drift, where, of course, the largest number of Victoria Crosses were ever awarded for one battle. There were 11 for that battle alone.
So I often wonder, because all these VC winners that they've done extraordinary things, and the way they fought, to see the way this country's turned out, it's so sad.
Oh, absolutely. And Padfa in the chat is saying, my grandparents always said that Churchill was a bit of a warmonger. So did my grandparents, Padfa, funnily enough. My grandfather, who went across on D+3 to Normandy, he was a regular soldier between the wars, and served in India on the northwest frontier. And even he thought Churchill was a warmonger, because he was,
Part of the industrial complex, as it was. Although I doubt he was thinking in terms like the military industrial complex, though, surely.
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. John Best is saying, have any aristocrats who fought in the military won the VC? Yes, of course they have. Many of them have. Both in the Victorian era. Remember, the Victoria Cross was created to award heroes of the Crimean War initially in 1854-56. So, yeah, many aristocrats have won the VC, both in the Victorian era, in World War One and World War Two, and probably in between the wars as well. I mean, the most recent VC was some guy in Afghanistan, I believe. But interestingly, the two most recent British ones were both to diverse people, I'm pretty sure. Strange to say. Which I'm sure was done deliberately, frankly.
I'm right in thinking that was the VC's made out of a cannon that was seized from the Crimean War, wasn't it?
They're either from Russian guns seized in the Crimea or from Chinese guns that we captured in the 1860 war when we defeated the Chinese in 1860.
I don't know. There's a jeweler in London that's in charge of making them, and they hate having to make the things because the metal's so hard to work with.
Yeah, but they don't have to make many. I mean, only two. No, hang on, let me think. I think 4 or something have been won since World War II. But it's confusing because Australia still gives VCs, but they're not the same as the British VC anymore. They're an Australian VC. Why the hell they had to change that, I don't know, but they did. So it's a bit confusing. But I think the Australian and Canadian ones are equally as hard to win still. Although Canada these days is probably giving them for people who murder ostriches, but who knows? Yeah. But yeah, the VC is the hardest military medal to win. And these days, it tends to be mostly given posthumously. Like you're more likely to end up dead before you get one than to get one and survive. Again, they've made it less special because it used to be the only medal that was open to everyone. So if you're in the Navy, an ordinary seaman to an admiral can get one. But they've changed it now because they have to, of course, because they have to fuck around with everything. And in the old days, even when I was in the army in the 1980s, the soldiers got the military medal and officers got the military cross. But for reasons I do not understand at all, they made everyone the military cross now. I just don't know why you have to give the same award to everyone. I don't know, maybe the women who they're encouraging to join like that. I don't know. So, you know, the British Army, and I don't want to go off on a rant because I easily will, has just got its Ajax vehicles. And they're saying, oh, yeah, they're coming into service, and they were sending crewmen from these things to hospital even this year, because they're so noisy and there's so much vibration. They're also huge. They're supposed to be a reconnaissance vehicle, but they're huge. They're very tall. They're taller than a main battle tank, or most main battle tanks. They're taller than most of those. They're very large. They're very heavy. You can't really move them by aircraft. Like an Atlas RAF transport can't carry them. I think the 4 or 6 Globemasters that the RAF has can possibly just about carry one if you take some of the armor off it. But they're obviously, because they're a reconnaissance vehicle, they're much less heavily armored than a main battle tank. And they're only armed with a 40mm autocannon, which is not going to knock out an enemy main battle tank unless you hear up the arse, perhaps. And these things are supposedly revolutionary, even though they're about, I don't know, 9 years late now and way, way over budget. And they're, because we've got rid of all our infantry fighting vehicles, you know, the Warriors, I think they're mostly now gone from the army. They were the vehicles that were supposed to support the main battle tanks with infantry in them. But we've got rid of all those now, and we're only going to use wheeled APCs, basically armored box on wheels, which are not doing very well if you look at Ukraine. They're quite easy to knock out with drones and all the rest of it. But, the British Army is also down to 89 guns now. The whole of the British Army has 89 105mm guns. And we use 36 of those, 2 regiments, in the Falkland Islands in 1982 to take back the Falklands and support a very small infantry division, which is what we ended up with down in the Falklands. We used 36 of them for that. And also there was a great deal of naval gunfire support as well. The British Army's not in a fit state to fight anyone.
Yeah,
nearly approaching it in terms of technology. I mean, I reckon we'd struggle to invade Swaziland these days. And I'm not sure over.
It makes you wonder why Starmer is so intent on poking the Russians.
Yeah, I mean, unless he's got a suicide wish, which wouldn't surprise me, because I mean, he's hiding all this stuff about Ukrainian rent boys, for example, while he's pretending to be a married man and all the rest of it with children. He's got very young Ukrainian rent boys who know everything about him, including his private residences and what car he drives and all that sort of stuff, which presumably they only knew because he was a client of theirs. And of course, the British mainstream media virtually never mentions this. So it could well be that Two-Tier Keir Starmer has got some sort of suicide wish. Maybe that's why he's poking the bear all the time.
Sorry. I was going to say, any advice for a Farage prime ministership if he was to listen to you?
Oh, well, obviously, mass deportations.
Well, outside of military-wise, obviously the mass deportations, but any advice for
the defense budget needs to be increased by about 20% on what it is now. And you need to stop wasting money on shit like Ajax, basically. Spend more on the Royal Navy.
There you go, Mr. Farage. I'm sure he's listening. There you go, Mr. Farage.
I bet he's not. But it's a pity. If he listened to this show, he'd actually get good advice that most ordinary British people would support. But I'm sure he doesn't because he's
too busy reading The Guardian or something. I don't know.
Yeah, he's too worried about being called far right and listening to the Sri Lankan Muslim guy who he's made chairman of Reform for some unknown reason.
Yeah.
Zia Yusuf, who, Reform's got 5 MPs, but you see more of Zia Yusuf on the media than you do of those MPs.
And he doesn't have a seat at all. He just bought his way into that position. It's it's so weird.
Well, he didn't even spend that much money in terms of politics. I mean, he gave like a fairly minimal amount of money, actually, for the amount of money that donors give in politics. And I can't stand Zia Yusuf. I mean, if there was any alternative, I wouldn't vote for Reform. I will vote for them at the next election because I want to destroy Labour and the Conservatives, who are a union party, but not because I think...
Can I clarify what you're saying? If it was an election today, you'd vote for Reform until something changes.
Yeah, I mean, if the people who run Restore Britain were actually a party, I'd sooner support them, to be honest with you.
That's what I was getting to.
Better policies,
or advance, or anything other than Reform. I just don't. Just watching what the way Farage has approached politics. I mean, it was only 6 months ago. He was basically just throwing us to the wolves. Basically, It was only 6 months ago. People think of it like it was a year or so ago. It was 6 months ago. It was spring. He was throwing us to the wall. So we can't go against Islam.
He's had to change his position because it's so obvious that most of the people who support reform do want a total end to legal mass immigration, and they want mass deportations. Immigration is obviously the number one issue in British politics, and that is not going to change, whatever people say. And the Overton window on this is in our direction now, I'm happy to say. Most people want a total end to mass immigration. Everyone's had enough of it. And more and more people are supporting mass deportations. And starting with, obviously, the illegal economic migrants, who are mostly military-age single men who come across the channel. Starting with them, but it's got to go much further than that.
Oh, way further. I'm afraid. Well, people have said, like, since the Boris wave, I'd go as far as pre-97 levels, to be honest. But I mean, I'll take what I can get for now.
I support everyone being sent back, including second generation and third generation people. All of them should be sent back, as far as I'm concerned. All of them, going right back to the 1940s. You know, the Jamaican people who came on that ship. All of them.
Yeah,
all of them.
But bloody Nazis! They got us back in the end, didn't they? With their repurposed ship.
I have no idea what ship. I don't think the Windrush was a German ship, mate.
It was a German ship before.
Okay.
It was repurposed to the Windrush. I forgot. Let me Google that for a second.
I didn't know that, but then I've never looked much into the Windrush thing, except for the fact that the effect of these people on post-war Britain was enormously exaggerated.
Yes, so the Windrush was the MV Monte Rosa. It was a German cruise liner built by Blom and Voss in Hamburg, 1930. The ship was captured by British forces as a prize of war, converted into a troop ship, and renamed the His Majesty's. What does HMT stand for?
His Majesty's Transport, I would imagine.
His Majesty's Transport Empire Windrush in 1947. So there you go.
Well, like you say, the Germans sure got us back, didn't they? In so many other ways too. I mean, you know, World War II destroyed the British Empire. Basically, that was the only result of World War II for Britain, was that it impoverished the country and destroyed the empire. That was all we achieved in World War II, really.
Yeah,
I mean, we won great victories in Burma. You know, the largest defeats that the Japanese Imperial Army ever had were in Burma in 1944 and 1945. But by 1948, Burma and India were both independent. So what was the point of that, really?
You could say a lot of the last 100 years of our history. What was the point?
Yes, you really could. I mean, think of all the volunteer Rhodesians. I know on Aaron's stream earlier, where we were talking about the author of Biggles, W.E. Johns, we were talking about Rhodesians in the RAF in World War II. And many Rhodesians joined not only the RAF. I mean, Ian Smith, the Prime Minister of Rhodesia, was a Spitfire pilot in World War II. But there were many others, and also many others who joined the British Army and what have you. And what did we do to those people immediately after the war? We shat on them. We shat on Rhodesia. Not the British people, but the British government. And they did the same thing, the British government, to their own people with mass verbal immigration, which continues to this very day. And if you're not very careful, and you say you can get a visit from the police for a tweet on X, on Twitter, where we are broadcasting at the moment. If you say the wrong thing, the police in Britain will come and visit you. And if you look at the number of people who are imprisoned for social media posts in Britain, you can absolutely seriously argue that Britain has more political prisoners than Putin does in Russia.
Oh, indeed.
Because you don't get sent to jail in Russia for tweets. You just don't. Even if you say Putin's an arsehole or the war in Ukraine is wrong, you don't get sent to jail in Russia for that. But if you say the wrong thing about one of the ethnic minorities who have been brought into Britain by British governments against the will of the British people, if you do that, you can end up in prison in Britain, because it's not a free country and we don't have free speech anymore.
No, it's so sad. I can't believe how far this country's fell. And
well, I mean, look at the grooming gangs, Martin. You know, and don't for 1 minute think this is a historical problem. There are grooming gangs in every corner of Britain to this day, and all the politicians, Labour and Conservatives, not just Labour, but the Conservatives, so-called Conservatives as well, they just cover it up.
well, it's so bad, because I've just had a stream with Dynabo and we mentioned this, and one of the things we talked about was, we know it happened in Rotherham, we know it happened in Telford, we know it happened in Oxford. Rotherham isn't exactly a white place, but Telford and especially Oxford, those aren't Muslim majority areas. Where don't you hear about it? London, Birmingham, Leicester. That's not a coincidence.
Well, yeah, I mean, do you think that Khan in London wants wants anything to happen to his fellow countrymen? Because I can assure you he doesn't.
But
They just cover it up and lie, basically.
I mean, well, I've heard of some grooming gang in Barrow-in-Furness, for example, but I'm not familiar with anything that's happened in Birmingham. That's virtually on my doorstep.
But I guarantee it goes on there.
Yeah,
Not only does it go on there, I bet it happens even worse.
yeah, I've heard rumours about Birmingham and also London as well. But as Duke says, particularly with London, that's covered up far more extensively than the grooming gang anywhere else, because of, frankly, the city government.
Yeah. Yeah, I think GB News was recently doing an investigative piece on that. But yeah, it's like, you know, you look at Rotherham, like the Pakistani community in Rotherham is actually quite small, and look how prolific, you know, they were there. The Pakistani community in London is many, many, many times the size. So it's almost impossible that there isn't one there, and yet the police have never investigated or tried one.
Yeah,
But Birmingham, Leicester,
Yeah,
places like Reading and Slough. You know, if it's happening in Oxford, it's sure happening in those areas, I can assure you, because I know those parts of England pretty well.
yeah, 100%. I mean, for some of these places, I mean, you look at even in the towns, you know, the towns which we know of where this is talked about, you know, that now have their sort of names stained by this, you know, Bradford and places like that. In some of these towns, you know, you'd have a gang of like 24 people and only the ringleader was prosecuted. You know, and these are the places where the government's, you know, likes to say, well, this is a done issue, it's been sorted. You know, and even in these places, they only put in like the absolute bare minimum to like you know, and there's a I like to bring this guy up quite a lot actually with like regular people, but there was a Rotherham councillor called Maruf Hussain who had like helped to cover up grooming gangs. Never tried, entirely had to step down because, you know, the public there might have killed him. He just went off and got some high-end job in the NHS. You know, so even then, when people go, oh, all right, NHS and that, it's, I mean, even those institutions are largely just used as a sort of retirement place for disgraced client group members.
Yeah.
For them to just dump all of them.
Not councillors, and police officers of certain ethnic minorities. Or social workers of certain ethnic minorities, all of those people, and some self-hating white people. It has to be.
Oh, you're making a misstep there.
Sorry,
in what way, Aaron?
In the sense that these are not self-hating white people in many cases, particularly in the police. What I mean is, there's a particular attitude. You see this with middle class people when they talk about green gang victims, but there are also with working class people who they definitely look down on these girls as being from. They're bad girls. They're girls who are from bad homes.
But Aaron, my problem with that, you see, is I can accept to some degree what you're saying, of course. But my problem with it is some of these girls were as young as 11.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care if they're a
well. I mean,
bad
even
girl.
beyond that, there were a lot of girls that got caught up in that stuff that were literally just middle class girls. But of course, they have to push the working class angle because they then get to do, as Aaron's describing, they then get to play that card.
Yeah, when they try and pretend that 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old girls are effectively prostitutes is what they try and claim.
Yeah, they're
children, basically. They're children.
Yeah, no, that's an issue that's not a matter of political correctness, not necessarily a matter of middle class people. There's a certain type of attitude among working class communities that exists, and that has enabled things to go on as much as political correctness and turning a blind eye to things. And that's a component you mustn't ever forget exists alongside everything.
Well, I know also, Aaron, that quite a lot of these girls were supposedly in the care of the state, in children's homes. Quite a large number came from broken families where they only had a mother, no father at home at all, single mother households. None of this helps, of course, but then even when some of these girls did have dads, whether they were at home or they were just visiting, when dads tried to rescue these girls, the police arrested the fathers.
Oh, sorry.
John, are you familiar with the Muslims that start sort of shelters for these children as well? I forget where it was, and I don't know any names, but there was a Muslim chap who started like a refuge centre. He wanted to start up that he would have exclusive access to for vulnerable young women.
I don't think that should be allowed, to be honest with you, Mercy. But,
doesn't surprise me.
No, I mean there was a bunch of them that were carers, and they were literally. I mean, one of them particularly. I mean, it's reported on that they partook in marrying off one of the children in their care to an adult Pakistani man. Never tried. Pretty sure that guy's just still around and just still works prominent council jobs. So yeah, it's.
And we know that the government inquiry into this is a farce. With that idiot woman in charge of it, who just lies all the time because she knows she's going to lose her seat at the next general election to an Islamic MP, almost certainly.
Jess Phillips.
Jess Phillips, idiot Jess Phillips. And she's just totally mealy-mouthed about all of this stuff. And we know that the Labour government and the Conservative government, when no better, don't give a shit about those little white girls. Because they're little white girls. They're little working-class gammon girls. They don't give a shit about them,
Do you know Jess Phillips' worst crime? She must know that this is going to be her only chance at any power unless she gets parachuted into a different constituency, which I doubt. I can't imagine there are going to be many Labour constituencies left to choose from. But
yeah, exactly. It's going to be a very. There's not going to be much of a Labour base after the next election, and I hope there's not going to be much of a Conservative base either.
Well, all I'm thinking is, if I was Jess Phillips, I'd go scorcher earth and basically know I'm going to lose power and just do the right thing.
Yeah,
There's no way.
she
there's
can't
no way
even
she
do
could-
that then.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, all right. Aaron's probably correct in saying self-hating is probably not the right word, because they don't see themselves as one of us. They don't see themselves as being primarily a English or British person, and I think that's the main problem. The so-called elites in Britain, and I don't care if they're morons like Jess Phillips or David Lammy, or guys who've never read a book and don't have an internal dialogue like Tutier Kerstama, who probably thinks he's a Ukrainian rent boy or something. But that's how he behaves with that idiot Zelensky anyway. Yeah, it's these people don't see themselves as British. They don't see the real Anglo-Celtic British people, the white British people, as being the people who they're responsible for. They just don't. They're scum, basically, as far as I'm concerned.
Royal
That's the conclusion.
Royal Biscuits in the comments said, but she's likely aiming for a job after her work in politics. If she goes scorched earth, she won't get the follow-on jobs and Gibbs. I mean, this is a big one behind like how the total state managers are supposed to keep all these people very much on board. You look at like, not to go across the pond to drag the argument over there, but you look at like the Bud Light thing, right? The whole boycott thing there. It's like, why did like another beer brand over there like Coors Light not come in as like the anti-woke beer? And it's like, because the CEOs and the prominent figures in those companies, if they start a culture war in that industry, that will count against them when they're looking to move in the future. And it largely works the same way in sort of domestic left versus right politics as well. Like, this is also kind of why I'm always a little bit more skeptical about calling certain people on the right grifters, although we do definitely have grifters over here. Like, generally speaking, if you're going to do that thing, it's just easier to do it on the left, where you're still going to have career prospects afterwards. Whereas on here, you kind of have to go all or nothing all the time, which is also part of why the right's always struggled to grow. Because there's not much incentive to be on the right, except if you're like a spurgy truth seeker. And
I mean, we were talking earlier, Adam, about Zoom Historian. I mean, if you're not like Zoom Historian, then why are you going to do this stuff? Because your channel will get junked. I mean, I quite often talk about this when I'm online. We have to phrase what we say carefully, and I think we do, generally speaking. But you're always at risk of having your channel zonked. And I mean, all right, as people in the chat said about Zoom Historian, like we're on Odyssey. So if we ever disappear from YouTube, and also we're on X, of course, these days. But if we were to disappear from YouTube, you could still find us on Odyssey and on X, on Twitter. It's not a career path on the right, and you have to be so careful what you say. I mean, I'm fortunate in that I am semi-retired, shall we say, and I'm not, and I was always self-employed anyway when I left the military, so I'm not beholden to anyone for a job. But I'm very conscious that my guests, when they come on here, people like you chaps, you all work for people, so you do have to use a certain amount of care, and particularly, if you're in Britain, because there's no free speech in Britain. Keir Starmer's a joke when he says there is.
Yeah, but also anonymity won't protect you from it. Like, if the police are going to come after you, having.
They can. If they really want
profile
to.
picture isn't going to protect you. Yeah.
If they want to find you, they can, absolutely.
Well, my policy on that is I should at least make them expend some effort.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my view as well, Mercian. But it's a fact that if you're working for somebody else, you are vulnerable, as Alan said. This is just true. And if you're younger, you're vulnerable. But I don't know. My hope is that at the next general election, and the sooner it is, the better, as far as I'm concerned, the Labour Party and the Conservatives are both junked. Because if we can get rid of that two-party system, I don't think Farage will do a great deal. I mean, he may surprise me, and I'll be pleased if he does, but I don't think he'll do a great deal. But whoever comes after him might.
Well, you don't believe the reform cultists that's saying he's hiding his power levels and that he will bring in this base utopia?
No, I don't, sadly.
Ye of little faith. Oh.
Yeah.
No, I do think to an extent he is hiding some power levels, but I think they either wilted away a long time ago because he's played a character for too long at this point, or it doesn't matter in the end because he's just, you know, he is a boomer at the end of the day. He hasn't got the balls to cross the Rubicon when the time comes.
My gut feeling on Farage is he showed his true colours during the Steve Eddington interview, because there was no need to say any of that on that interview. No, I know some people saw, oh, well, Steve Eddington pushed out of him. He really didn't.
Yeah,
he really didn't.
Yeah, because the thing is, you can kind of see this as well, because if you go back to his UKIP days, he used to explicitly talk about leading the British public where they need to be. And he was very good in those days of being just ahead of the conversation at all times. And then somewhere between him leaving UKIP, the Brexit Party fiasco, and then obviously it turning into Reform Party, he changed quite substantially. And he wasn't, I mean, he was still the egotistical guy that he was before, that bad side of him still there, but also the previously good edge that he had a kind of either wilted or just faded completely or whatever it was. But now he's always floundering slightly behind the conversation and always playing catch up and always being weak at all the wrong moments. And it's a bit of a shame, but it is what it is.
But things are moving in our direction. I think, you know, if you want a white pill, and I don't think black pills do us much good, I've got to say. If you want a white pill, things are moving in our direction. The Overton window is moving in our direction. People on the mainstream media are now talking about mass deportations, which simply wouldn't have happened 5 years ago. Not a chance. But these days they have to, because it's you've got people like the Bias Brainwashing Corporation and all the mainstream media basically in Britain is liberal lefty, and they're having to talk about this stuff now just because it's what the conversation is about. I mean, you know, mass immigration and ending it is the number one issue in British politics by a country mile. And if you just talk to ordinary people away from, you know, I'm not talking about us guys talking about politics here, but if you just talk to ordinary people, everyone is talking about it.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's like I mean, it's kind of funny though, because it's like, I mean, obviously I have this good barometer because I work in an office and all that sort of stuff, and we get talking about politics a lot. I bring it up. They know my views. I'm pretty open about it. Probably shouldn't even bother with an avatar at this point. But they'll sit there and they'll say like, oh, you know, I want to, you know, red act people that get off boats in New Romney, you know. But then they'll turn around and they'll be like, oh, you know, oh bloody yeah, Boris Johnson, get him back. Or even like, oh, you know, I think people are too unfair to Keir Starmer. I'm just sitting there, I'm like, what? Like, you're defending these people who would look down their nose at you and think of you as a racist. Like, yeah, it is a funny one.
That's another thing. That's a word which used to be used as an insult, even though every human in the world is racist to some degree, and that includes all black and brown people as well as white people. It's a natural human thing to be racist and to support your own group, and the only people who don't are some white people, basically. You know, if I lived in Africa for 15 years, and I can assure you that the Zulus and the other various black groups in South Africa, all of whom, by the way, moved there, the original South Africans were people like the Bushmen, the San, and they were wiped out in South Africa by the Bantu. But you never hear about this, of course, from the ANC, surprisingly enough. But you know, even amongst black people, racism is extremely common. Like, you won't find a Xhosa who likes a Zulu or a Zulu who likes a Xhosa, and you know, they just don't. And the same thing is equally true amongst South Asians and East Asians, and in fact, the East Asians, you know, the Japanese and Chinese and what have you, don't even pretend that they're not. It's a natural human condition, and I think that is one insult which is very rapidly losing any power at all. You know, if someone calls me a racist, I just laugh.
Yeah, I'm still not sure how to quite take that, because it's like, there was a video a little while ago of some guy with glasses berating people that were putting up flags, and he was calling them racist. And I saw this was posted on Twitter, and I saw some like dialogue underneath it, and there were people saying, you know, to people on the right, going, "Oh, but you are racist." And I was kind of sitting there thinking, like, if someone calls you that, do you laugh because you don't consider it a big deal, or do you take it seriously because they intend it to be a slur?
I just laugh at it, Adam, because I think it's a joke. I mean, basically, I'll say and
yeah,
that's my view. I'll just say I am. So what?
Well,
yeah.
Well, people are tribal altogether. I mean, even if this country was as homogenous as it was 100 years ago, there was still rivalries, you know, north, east, south. In my neck of woods, me being a black country folk, we hate the Brummies, and the Brummies hate the black country folk.
Yeah,
for sure.
So,
yeah.
It's just the way we are, you know. And if the leftist liberals wanted the human race to be as one, the only way to do it was to get an alien race to start a war with us. That'd be the only way.
Well, so, even that's not impossible. I mean, you know, we've seen some stuff about UFOs in recent times, so you know, don't speak too soon, Mercy. Even that's not impossible.
Well, maybe they're priming us for it, because that's what they want. That's what want us to be as one, because maybe that's coming. I don't know. I wouldn't bank on it, but who knows? I don't know what to believe anymore. We're in a post-truth world. Even things like our politicians lie to us, the mainstream media lie to us. Even we can't believe our eyes anymore, because AI is getting so good now, and will only get better. We can't believe, you know, our lying eyes.
Much truth, Mercy. Yeah, I mean, does anyone take the mainstream media seriously anymore? I mean, does anyone get their idea of the world from the Bias Brainwashing Corporation anymore? I haven't even switched my TV on in probably 5 years, and the last time I did it was only because my computer wasn't working for some reason, and I got bored, and I watched it for like an hour and just couldn't stand the diversity in the adverts constantly. You know, where you, like, I mean, obviously I'm in Australia, but it's the same. I mean, Australia is basically an Anglo-Celtic country. It was founded by British settlers, you know, and it's not as far along as Britain, but it's going that way very rapidly.
how fast it's happening, especially to places like Canada and Ireland as well. How fast it's happening to places like that. Ireland's a surprise one, though. I mean, I know we've discussed this a few streams ago, but how fast it's happened to Ireland just beggars belief. I mean, they've overtook us.
I tell you what, Mercy, I tell you what, I watched a video by an Afrikaans guy. I follow a few Afrikaner people on YouTube and on X. The main one being Conscious Caracal, Ernst, who's a very nice chap, who's part of the Afri Forum group. And he's well worth following. But there's another dude who I follow, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But he did a video last week, I think, about when the Provisional IRA helped the ANC plant bombs in South Africa in the 1970s, which I did know about, but I'd forgotten about it. And yeah, the Provisional IRA, because they were Marxists, basically, they helped the ANC terrorist wing, which is called Umkhonto weSizwe, the Spear of the Nation, and it's their terrorist wing. They call it their military wing, of course. Yeah, the Provisional IRA were helping those guys plant bombs. And the Provisional IRA, yeah, they go on about, Brits out and all the rest of it, but it's umpteen billion Somalians in place of the Brits. They're quite happy for that. And that's why it's happened to Ireland so quickly, is because the so-called Irish, many of the so-called Irish nationalist groups, like Sinn Féin, are actually entirely in favour of replacing the real Irish people with people from the Fir Bolg.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Irish thing really shows you that everyone does still see race. They just pretend not to, because you'll see these people and they're like, hashtag Brits out. They're not saying that to Idris Elba, right?
I find it very strange with our Celtic cousins, especially Sinn Féin, but I think about Scotland and Wales as well. Like, Wales are going to drop Labour, but instead of going Reform, they're going Plaid Cymru, and it's sort of like, guys, Plaid Cymru are not going to give you the nationalism you're looking for.
No, they're a lefty, very lefty globalist party. And I mean, the dirty little secret in Scotland, of course, and it's not a secret to Scots. We have on our Discord a couple of really good young Scots guys. And these guys know very well. But the dirty little secret in Scotland is that the SNP is more supported by Irish people who move to Scotland than by real Scots. And those SNP people are basically the same as Sinn Féin in Ireland. They're not concerned at all about the real Scottish people. They're concerned that they want umpteen millions of immigrants.
Yeah, I'm always trying to point this out to people because you can see it a lot in football in Scotland, especially if you look at the history of football hooliganism.
Glasgow Rangers and Glasgow Celtic, yeah, absolutely.
Yes, yeah. Like, I mean, anyone who's watched like Peaky Blinders, right? You got the Billy Boys, which is like Mosley's guys, and they were they're based on a real Glaswegian street gang. And the theme song that they used for them in the show was the theme song of the Rangers, like a long time ago, admittedly. But yeah, and it was I believe it was actually banned along with a bunch of other football songs.
100%. Wood 420 is saying Millennial Woes is a base Scotsman. He is. Millennial Woes also retweeted this stream on X this evening, and I invited him to join the stream as a guest if he wanted to, but obviously he's too busy. But I did send him an invite. I'd happily have Millennial Woes on the stream, not a problem.
That'd be nice. I can't wait for his millennial this year as well.
Oh yeah, I mean that's an annual event for the people on the right like ourselves. He's had like just so many brilliant guests on that. But yeah. But Woes did actually retweet this stream this evening. I saw that earlier, And as I say, I did invite him onto the stream, and he's always welcome to join if he wants to. You know, we have Morgoth on here fairly frequently. We're lucky enough that he joins us, I don't know, once every few weeks when he's got some free time. And yeah, I'm quite happy to have someone like Millennial Words on as well. Not a problem.
Yeah. If I could show this stream, any Millennial with Morgoth's on, that was my favourite.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, absolutely. But he has all of the good people on our side on there, like Apostolic Majesty, you know, the distributor, Dave the distributorist. There's not many people on the right who I respect who have not been on Millennial Yule. But yeah, for sure, it's a very good show, and it must take so much organising with people from all over the world, you know.
Yeah, I always look forward to it.
We've kind of gone off our normal format this evening, guys. Anyway, talking about shilling and grifting, I'm going to grift. Guys, if you want to support the channel, you can do so via Entropy, and that's pinned at the top of the chat on YouTube. I've noticed that we've actually already got 1, 2, 3, we've already got 4 Entropy chats, which we will address towards the end of the stream. And before anyone leaves, please remind me, because I like to get all of the guests to reply to those. We don't make much money on this stream, obviously. And the little bit we do make, what it does is it helps me to pay for our streaming on StreamYards, and also to for my blue check mark on Twitter, so I can stream to Twitter at the same time, which hopefully gets us to more people. And it does. The channel's actually growing these days. Not hugely fast, but it is. We're becoming more popular. So, and I'm sure that's mostly down to my guests, not to me. But yeah, you know, I think that we're one of the few purely, well, not purely British, because we do have Australians and Canadians and what have you on here. And I myself live in Australia, even though I'm an Englishman. You know, if I live another 20 years, I'll still be an Englishman who lives in Australia. And of course, my son still lives in England. Yeah, I think we talk fairly sensibly, and we talk in a manner that, and Americans from time to time, Aubrey Alley, who of course been a guest on here several times, is a very nice American lady, and she's in the chat there. But yeah, I think we talk sensibly, and from a British and Old Commonwealth point of view, which is not all that common in terms of the right. There are far more American channels out there. I did, by the way, see a good cooperation between a British and an American guy the other day. Semia Gog had Rupert August, who's been on here quite a few times. He had Rupert August on, and they were talking about right-wing organisations after World War II. It was quite an interesting history stream. So check that out if you haven't already seen it, guys. Yeah, I was just going to say, I do like the stream, guys. That really helps. It takes 2 seconds, doesn't cost you a penny. And if you want to make a comment under the stream afterwards, that also helps. It's a good thing. And I do reply to the ones that require a reply. So we've gone off our normal format a bit. So I'm going to try and set us back for our second hour and say, Mercian, did you have a first topic you wanted to bring up this week?
Well, actually, we've kind of touched on it, but I'll bring it because we last week we touched upon what's happening with are we judged by a jury of our peers in law? And I'd like to expand that out to other institutions because I watched an episode of the Lotus Eaters, and one of my favourite Lotus Eaters, Dan Tubbs, talks about a story how he went to a walk-in centre and couldn't get seen by a doctor because he went to a particularly diverse walk-in centre. And I'd just like to touch on, well, the issues with multiculturalism that aren't being talked about enough, i.e., will we be judged by a jury of our peers if we ever get in trouble with the law? Will we be treated equally in the NHS? And anything similar to that? We've kind of touched on that already as we've drifted around the stream. So I'll open that out. Gentlemen, thoughts?
No.
Well, first of all, if you're a real indigenous British person, an Anglo-Saxon or a Celt, and you want to be a nurse or a doctor, it's much more difficult than if you are someone from overseas, because the NHS absolutely prefers people from overseas for whatever reason.
Yeah, I know cases of where they're actively advertising for NHS roles in places like Pakistan and similar, rather than in Britain, which is very troubling to me.
And there's discrimination against white people, not just in the NHS. The RAF, for example, the Royal Air Force, has a pilot shortage at the moment. And the reason they have a pilot shortage is a few years ago, they actually put a brake on recruiting straight white men into the RAF as pilots. And it's so bad that the RAF is now bringing instructors over from the Indian Air Force, because we're short of instructors. And of course, if you haven't got instructors, you don't have pilots. So they're now importing Indian pilots from the Indian Air Force to train RAF pilots.
And I've heard that some Anglo-Saxon pilots are being recruited by China to instruct their pilots.
That has happened. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the only people that would do that are people who mainly care about money, because it's extremely anti-patriotic to go and train Chinese pilots, which is what some of these guys are doing. And of course, they're also teaching the Chinese RAF and Western methods, which is also bad. You know, you don't really want potential enemies to know how you're going to operate.
I mean, who drew first blood on this? Was it the pilots going, well, I can get a better gig with China, or was it our elites going, well, we don't want white Anglo-Saxons in our institutions?
It was our elites, because not only did they absolutely put a brake on straight white guys from joining. There's a channel on YouTube who I also follow on X, on Twitter, and he's a former RAF fighter pilot, but he was also an instructor. And they even asked him to come back after he'd left, because they were so short of pilots. And he's the guy who pointed out that they're importing Indian pilots. But not only did you have that situation, but of course the British Armed Forces continually every year get smaller and smaller. You know, we did our history stream last week was about the British Army in the First World War. And I pointed out that in 1914, Britain had the contemptible little army. You know, that the Kaiser said if it landed on the German coast, he'd send a policeman to arrest it because it was so small. That contemptible little army in 1914 was 3 times the size of the modern British Army. 3 times as big. And that was without reserves. But yeah, the British Armed Forces just get smaller and smaller, so you've got less and less opportunities for a career. And then they do discrimination by race by saying, no, we don't want straight white men, who of course are the main people you're going to get in Britain, surprisingly enough. But yeah, there's that.
Yeah. It's just such a mess. I mean, it shouldn't have to come to this. I just worry because, like, there's some friends of mine that live in a very diverse area of the Black Country, and they had a problem with their dentist that they couldn't get treatment for their tooth, and in the end, they ended up getting sepsis and brain damage. And I always wondered if it's because they're in a bit of a diverse area of the Black Country, and if they would have been better off moving dentists to somewhere.
Mercy, and don't forget that one of the things that this government in particular is doing is they are moving this diversity, in air quotes, into all parts of the country now. And
Project
they're doing it on purpose so that nowhere will not be touched by this and ruined by it.
Yeah, it's terrifying. What do you guys think, Ataman and Aaron? What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of the NHS, it's pretty screwed up. I mean, I saw a stat the other week that was like, they pay out more in settling cases of malpractice connected to the maternity ward than we actually spend on maternity care. And of course, you know, you look at the stats on malpractice, it's largely all because of foreign doctors. They're also just pretty nasty to white patients on the whole, a lot of them. Yeah, that's a bit of a problem. But even if you go, I mean, you said jury of your peers, even if you go into the legal system, I think like 95% of all new barristers are Pakistani. You know, the Bar Association has black only internships for barristers, and they specifically justify that under the 2010 Equality Act because it has a provision for proactive discrimination. But of course the thing is, even going as far back as like 2004, I believe, like the government did studies where they were basically trying to find out if white jurors were racist, so they could push through the idea of requiring that juries be mixed. And what they actually found was actually that like everyone in a jury is essentially anti-white. White people are also a little anti-white. They're just a lot less than other groups, and other groups are explicitly pro their own group and anti-white.
100. I mean, all of the immigrants share one thing in common: they don't like real indigenous British people. They all share that. That's the only thing they do share. But yeah, and it's like, even if you go back to, I mean, we were talking about the Good Morning Britain with the brown guy earlier, talking to the veteran, but I can't remember if it was him or another one, but I remember someone posted an excerpt from Konstantin Kissin's book where he basically said that he sat on a panel where he was the only guy justifying that Britain was not a bad place to live for minorities or something. And one of these, I can't remember if it was Adil Ray or one of the others. I can't tell them apart, let's be honest. They were basically like, oh, I'm glad it's you're arguing on that side and not like not like an English person. And of course, Konstantin Kissin's father is some sort of Russian oligarch who had to leave the country very rapidly so that Putin didn't put him in jail. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I had just because I saw corruption, in other words. Yeah. Just because I saw Richard Phillips in chat posted about his dentist or a dentist. I had surgery on my leg a while back. I actually can't remember when it was. It was I think it was late last year. But the surgeon you did well, Adam, because didn't you take a walking holiday in the Pyrenees not so long ago? Yeah, I did. Yeah, but they tell you with those sorts of operations, they do say you got to start moving like immediately. But but they had when I went in there and I had like the assessment, it was a black guy, and I'm like, oh, this is the assistant, and he's like, oh, I'm the surgeon. And I was like, oh, fuck it, I'm messaging people going like, I'm not going to make it. Be nice knowing you, bros. But he was being overseen by a senior surgeon who was Spanish, so I thought, okay, I'll go through with this. And he couldn't take like basic instructions. He was a complete retard, and the in the end, the senior surgeon ended up like kind of pushing him aside and being like, look, let's just stand there, and finished it off. Well, I know in Australia, guys, the late love of my life was a very highly qualified nurse with a master's degree. And she used to tell me that, you'd get nurses coming from India and Pakistan and other places. And basically, it was almost impossible to even check their qualifications. And so what they ended up doing is basically that to retrain them totally, because they couldn't be sure that they came up to Australian standards.
The most bizarre experience I've had with with an Indian doctor was I went in and I'm waiting, and he comes in, and instantly the first thing he says is, "Oh, you look so pale." And then he holds my hand up next to his and goes, "Look at how pale you are." I'm just thinking, I just had to say, I'm always like this.
We're getting dad jokes in the chat and dad jokes on the stream now. So. Welcome, by the way, Theron. Aaron, did you have an opinion on what Mercian's been talking about here, mate?
Yeah, I think if we just look at the legals in terms of juries themselves, in that sense of juries and our peers, I think the diversity there is not as necessarily concerning as sort of the legal system in general, the state of it, because I wonder how many people from ethnic backgrounds actually do jury duty as opposed to getting out of it.
Yeah.
Whereas generally to find British people will do that duty even if they don't like it. They understand they've got the civic responsibility of doing it. Whereas the issue of the barristers, for example, the judges, that in terms of diversity, that to me seems far more concerning. And again, in the NHS, the diversity is definitely worrying. You've had various cases, sort of mistakes being made by nurses and doctors who were from different ethnic backgrounds. There was that recent one of, I can't remember the exact details, but it's because of a mixture of languages that people couldn't, you had a group of ethnic doctors, nurses who couldn't communicate because they couldn't speak English.
Yeah.
But also, particularly within the NHS, you've got an additional problem there. I have a relative of mine who's been a nurse in the NHS since the 1980s, and she says there is a cultural attitude among nurses, regardless of their background, for the most part, among a younger generation nurse, that they just don't understand that they're in a caring profession. And so you've got those two, I think, really are a big problem within the NHS.
Yeah, that's what Richard Phillips was talking about. Trump was talking about that with that helicopter crash in DC. Was it last year? Was it?
Well, also, yeah, because also the female pilot, the female pilot who was actually flying, and she had an instructor with her, but she was actually flying, and she was higher than she was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And when they went over the records of the radio conversations, like the instructor pilot is telling her to lose height and go left, I think it was, and she didn't. She argued, and as a consequence, 68 people died. Like everyone in the helicopter and everyone in the small airliner that she hit, because she was in the wrong place and she was too high. But I argue constantly that women don't belong in the front line of the military, and I'm sorry, they just don't.
She was wrong, and she decided to be loud about it.
There was another
lived
case
about 4 seconds afterwards.
There was, I forget which airline. Was it over Texas? Was it one of the doors that fell off? Was it Boeing? Was it a Boeing plane?
That was diversity as well, Mercy.
Yeah, it's not coincidence that that's happened twice within the last 5 years.
Well, there was that Boeing whistleblower who was he flew out to give a testimony about it, about all the problems there, and then in his motel he suddenly decides to. So he flew out. He's staying in a motel, and in his motel he decided to commit suicide the day before the hearing. Of course he did.
Oh look, all reality in the chat is saying, "Oh, this is when you guys make me feel like I have to defend women," and she's
Yeah.
not a feminist. Right? All reality is not a feminist, so I know that. But let me tell you something. All reality. I have been in so many cars with women, and I guarantee you, everyone on this panel would agree with me. You'll try and tell a woman who's driving something, and she'll fucking argue with you just because she doesn't like you telling her. And that was what that woman pilot did.
Well, I mean, this is kind of the problem, isn't it? Is that like if you've got an industry that just isn't of inherent interest to a lot of women, and you try to elevate the number of that given demographic in that industry, you're gonna have to scrape the barrel a little bit, and you're gonna end up as well with a lot of people that are there simply for means of ego, too, and that both of those things kind of are going to cause problems essentially.
There's another point though with this woman pilot that we're talking about here. Like, if the instructor was an NCO and she was an officer, okay, but if it was two blokes and it was the same position, the instructor was an NCO and the pilot under instruction was an officer, the NCO would still have said to him, "Do as I fucking tell you, sir," you know. And the officer would have done it if he was a bloke. But because she was a woman, you can hear on the radio conversations where he says, "I think we should, ma'am," because you can't bark at a woman, because if you bark at a woman in the military, she'll report you.
I know you follow Tim Davies, the RAF pilot. And
that was the guy I was talking about earlier, by the way, guys. Yeah, sorry, Darren.
Yeah, like he's always said, like, he's met plenty of very good women pilots, but he always makes the point that the plane doesn't care; it will just kill you. There's no, like, it doesn't matter about the diversity; it's just going to kill you, and that's what you need to remember at all times in these things.
Yeah, I think my point for bringing this up, some people get into this idea it's just about culture. It's so much more than culture.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, our very lives are at stake.
What was the topic, by the way?
Oh, do you remember how last week I brought up about jury of our peers?
Yeah.
But I expanded it out to NHS, just diversity in the law, in doctors, in everything, and how it affects us beyond culture.
Yeah,
basically what I'm trying to get at, because we make it, are we worried about losing the Anglo-Saxon culture, or which is a very fine thing to be worried about, but it's beyond that. It's affecting people's lives in ways that perhaps even we on the right aren't thinking about on a day-to-day basis. I genuinely worry about some of this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I do sometimes feel like I'm not a doomer, but you do sometimes get that feeling like, is this the end? Are we living through the end? Are we just going to be like one of those, another like footnote in history, like so many other like peoples before us?
Yeah. Well, the ultimate thing, you go to a diverse NHS doctor. Could you imagine finding such a person? And they do a Harold Shipman basically, except you survive for whatever reason, right? And then you want to go through the justice system, and then all of the diversity defends that doctor. Is that scenario out of the question?
No, of course it would happen. That's what happens in all these juries. Like we sit on juries, and we, like you've seen in the stats, like white people will treat everyone equally in juries. The other groups don't.
Yeah, this is my worry, that they're far too tribal, and it's I think it's something we should be talking about more, guys. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I would say a case we mentioned last week on this stream was the moronic, just stop oil greeny people who spray painted Stonehenge. They got found not guilty.
Yeah.
And there's video of them spray painting Stonehenge. Now, all right, apparently the stuff they used was not damaging, but I don't care. They should still have been sent to jail as an example to other people. Stonehenge is one of the most ancient monuments in the whole fucking world.
Mhm.
You know, it's older than the pyramids.
Yeah.
And the British jury found them not guilty.
Yeah.
Insane, as far as I'm concerned.
It was that case that made me want to talk about this stuff because like he just opened up something. It's sort of like, how safe are we really? How much do we have to keep our heads down in this day and age? Really, you know, it's dangerous in ways that I don't even think we're fully aware of.
Oh, look at people who were fast tracked through the so-called British justice system over the Southport stuff, right? Look at they were fast tracked for it. They ended up going to court within 48 hours, which is completely unheard of in Britain, and then immediately got found guilty. And guys were given like 3 years in prison for nothing, basically. And this is why Two-Tier Care got his nickname, because he is. I mean, you know, don't forget he was a human rights lawyer, whatever the fuck that's supposed to mean, when he was younger. Although how the fuck he's a lawyer who's never read he's never read a novel, I think, as I'm sure Aaron would know. I can't understand someone who's never read a novel, but okay. Probably too busy with Ukrainian rent boys, but yeah, it's if you've got an open and shut case like these guys were filmed spray painting Stonehenge, they were guilty. I'm sorry, there's no argument. You can't say they were not guilty because they did it.
Yeah,
Didn't they get off because like basically arguing free speech, which is so laughable
In Britain,
I think that's what they got off on, like their freedom to protest or something, and that was speech.
Try arguing free speech if you're on the right in politics.
Yeah, this is my freedom of protest. Yeah, sure.
Again, whatever you think of Tommy Robinson, he was kind of patient zero for this kind of thing, because most of his court cases were done without a jury. Which is really unusual.
But wouldn't that be his choice?
Do you think he chose to be without a jury?
I have no idea, mate. I don't like Tommy Robinson.
Well, no,
is he still? Isn't he? Is he not still in Israel, or has he finally come back from his paid trip?
I don't know. I understand people's problems with him, but the fact still remains. The state treated him like he had no rights at all.
I mean, the thing is,
there's a segue there, by the way, guys. You remember? I'm sure people on this panel remember that Connor Tomlinson did a paid trip to Israel. It was not quite such a big deal as Tommy Robinson's, of course, but he did also do a paid trip to Israel, and we spoke about it on this stream. But Connor Tomlinson has now been banned from a reform meeting.
And it was like, it was one, they'd already agreed to it. And then probably Yusuf goes and says, no, you don't. And says, they're like, oh, no, he's banned. So that's even worse.
Banned for being based is basically reform's way.
But actually, the thing is with Connor Tomlinson, you don't know if Zia Yusuf banned him because he's anti-Muslim because he went to Israel, or if he was banned for just being too right-wing by Nigel Farage. It was one of the two, but you don't know what. It's
maybe they both talk about how much they didn't like him, and they didn't give the reasons. It's all like, well, we both don't like him. He's gone. He
should take it as a compliment, really. That they know and they're afraid of him, that they're not willing to let him speak.
Yeah, I mean, I keep forgetting about his whole Israel thing, but I do enjoy his content. When he gets angry, especially
When he gets, I was going to say, yeah, when he gets angry, that's that's the best. Yeah, then he gets like, you know
He,
what?
he
Fuck
was
this
one of
Civ Night.
he was one of the 3 young blokes who got a big cheer, didn't he, at a reform meeting?
Yes, yeah.
Where, because he said that mass
Mass
deportation.
deportation, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And of
But he
course, Nigel doesn't like that.
No.
Well, I think I forget which speaker it was. I did try and find that stream. It's not that well advertised. Not even by Connor himself. So I had to search hard for that stream, and I don't know the speaker's name, but basically, he wanted Britain to be like the Michaela School.
Oh, Michael
And-
Gove.
No, I
Oh
think,
no, Robert Toombs, I think. The
that could
historian.
be right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's where Connor took exception. He's sort of like, well, my country should not be like the Michaela School.
Mm-hmm.
My country should be far more English.
Yeah.
And any immigrant should be more like us, and we shouldn't. Basically, he was arguing against Sivnats.
Yeah,
in a nutshell.
He's not a Sivnat. He might give like some Christians a bit of grace, but it does seem like he's just every day he gets more angry with Sivnats. And the other thing he's recently had was about the Michaela School is he had a talk with Michael Gove and the woman who runs it for the Spectator, and he's quite upset because the Spectator are hiding. They're not publishing the interview which they agreed to do. And he's saying it's because like Michael Gove is going like full, homosexual Sivnat bullshit. And Connor's saying he made Michael look really bad. So they're just going to hide it.
I don't know if Adam is back yet. I know
Yes, I am.
Adam, what's your views on this? And then I'll ask Aaron.
I don't know. I've literally only just got back. I saw something about Michael Gove on my feed. What's the long and short of this? He did an interview with is it Tomlinson for the Spectator?
Mm-hmm. So it's Connor Tomlinson with the Michaela School woman and Michael Gove. And
right, okay.
Connor was basically in opposition to Michaela School, going, "This is bullshit. You're not these kids aren't English. Some hijabis, reciting Kipling doesn't make them English." And then Michael Gove is all, "Yes, it does, apparently." And it sounds like Connor made him look really bad, so the Spectator are just hiding the interview, even though they agreed to publish it.
It's a shame Connor doesn't have a copy of that from to release.
You should just get a recorder on you, just like a tape recorder, whatever. Just to have the audio at least.
Yeah, I mean, this is where the the whole sort of cultural argument just falls apart.
Yeah.
Like, I obviously like English and British culture, but that culture could change radically. 10 years from now, the only thing that determines whether it is British or not is simply that it's made up of British people.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's just. I mean, it was like. I mean, I was a big fan of that Robert Toombs. I liked his book, and then he did that bit where he gave that speech, and he kind of got heckled a bit for it, and he went out and wrote an article, which I think we covered on a previous stream. But you just read it and you just think like, they say like never meet your heroes, like never read the responses that your heroes give to really rather simple questions to answer.
Yeah.
The answer, Armin, is don't have live heroes.
Well,
Never have live heroes. If you're going to have a hero, make sure he's dead.
Yeah.
Aaron, what's your take on this stuff, mate?
I think with Michael Gove and sort of Connor Tomlinson, I don't think it's so much civic nationalist reasoning that Michael Gove's doing that. It's because he's obviously the patron saint of free schools. So he's ideologically committed to that, and so anything that makes free schools look bad in any way, he's going to suppress. So I think that's the real reason he's not releasing that interview more than anything else.
He's also not very base, though, Aaron. You've got to say that
No.
Michael.
Yeah.
Although people like Bowden knew him many years ago, he's completely been taken over by the globalist bullshit.
Yeah, but I agree with Andrew. But you've got to understand that the free schools in Rokoko's time as the Secretary of State for Education is sort of the pinnacle of his career. So that's his legacy. So anything that will affect that in any way, he's going to do his best to suppress it.
Fair enough.
I mean,
Fair enough.
the Michaela school gets. I mean, I hear they get good results on tests and stuff, which is all he cares about. Whereas
Yeah.
Connor's coming at it from the culture side. No, these kids aren't English. That's what that's all that matters.
I wanted to ask a question of the panel, and like obviously I know my answer to this, and it was on X earlier. Someone said that where you are born does not decide your nationality and culture, and I totally agree with that. I don't know if you guys do.
It's the Duke of Wellington. Being born in a barn doesn't make you a horse.
Yeah. No, I can't imagine anyone else having any different views. I mean, everyone thinks of Joanna Lumley being really English, but she was born in India.
Mm-hmm. She is.
Rudyard Kipling is the example people.
Well,
he was born in India.
I just wanted to give a different one, but yeah.
Totally agree with you, by the way, Mercy. But magic soil is bollocks, basically. You can be born in England and not be an Englishman at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and of course, the irony as well that that people like one of the attack lines you've seen against Reform recently was that they're importing this, they're importing American culture over here, and you kind of sit there and think this is coming from people that pretend that we have anchor babies or have any conception of that, or any other, and these are also people that took the knee for BLM or bang on about systemic racism and all these various other imported American culture war paradigms. It's just the same. It's just the same fucking bullshit.
Well, on this, we had the identity of the train stabber that was happening during last week, and the fucking all these fucking cunts going, "Oh, he's British born." Fuck you, right wing. Egg on your face, right? And just some African guy is that? Oh, well, he's Jacob Williams rather than some jungle language, as if like it's like this isn't the win you think it is. Your British born guy is still stabbing. Your British born African is still stabbing people on trains.
Yeah, like but they grew up here. It's like, okay, and they still do crimes that are precipitated or that are in line with other people of their group that just got off a boat. Like, what does that tell you?
Whose parents?
It's your parents and grandparents.
It's not just
grandparents. That's what makes you who you are.
It primarily, but I don't.
95% at least, I would say.
Yeah. Oh, at least, but I would imagine that this chap. I mean, I don't know his name. I don't know his background. But can I be as bold to suggest he grew up in a ghetto surrounded by other Africans, maybe, or Afro-Caribbeans, or other diverse people?
I see where you're going, Mercy. And you're saying that a very few people can possibly be assimilated. Maybe, yeah. All right, I'm not going to argue with that. I fully support mass deportations to the third generation, as far as I'm concerned. They all need to go.
I mean, at very least.
But I will happily keep people like Ben Habib and the chap from UKIP. What's his name? I can't remember. David Curtin. Yeah,
I think
I'll keep. I'll keep David Curtin and Ben Habib if they identify as British. Those guys, they can stay for sure.
I mean, any half-breeds we shouldn't kick out unless they're just awful.
Well, like Bob Villan.
And
Lewis
he
Hamilton.
goes.
It depends how they identify. It's purely down to
Yeah,
that. I mean, I think
What
if
cricket
you are-
team do they cheer for on the TV?
Yeah, if they support England when England are playing, or England when the soccer team's playing, or the rugby team, whatever, yeah, fine. I've got no problem with those guys. But
Yeah, I don't know.
But if you're a third generation West Indian, I don't give a shit. You can go back and help Jamaica.
I don't know.
Or
I kind of disavow the idea of there even being a good one anymore. I think, to be honest, I think half the lefty white people can go with them too. I
agree. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But then then we're going to make our task even more difficult. And in any case, we're really talking down the track a bit here. I will be happy if a government comes in that first of all mass deports all of the illegal economic migrants who cross the channel in small boats, because they're not refugees, they're coming from France. France, according to the crappy United Nations, is a safe country. They're not refugees. And all of those guys need to just be deported. And in my opinion, Britain needs an offshore facility to send them all to. And I still say the place to do that is Ascension Island in the middle of the Atlantic. Build a big barbed wire camp in the middle of the island, which is volcanic, and there's no local people there. It's a military base. The only wildlife is basically on the coast, seabirds and fish and seals and stuff. You build a big camp on the middle of this volcanic island with barbed wire. You send a couple of teachers out there and a couple of doctors and nurses, preferably military ones. And everyone who arrives in Britain across the channel gets sent straight there, and they stay there for, even if it takes 2 years until they're deported. And I guarantee those guys will stop coming across the channel if you do that. Guarantee it. It absolutely worked for Australia, who did exactly the same thing.
I'll count the same thing, except I would move the location to not necessarily a volcanic island, but like some place on the outer Hebrides where the weather is absolutely terrible.
No, mate. When I say volcanic, it's a dead volcano.
Ascension is.
I just mean it's barren. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
You're not going to do any damage to the environment there.
Well, I suggested somewhere on the Hebrides where the weather is absolutely abysmal.
No, those places are too pretty and beautiful.
I think the Ascension
you would damage the environment, but Ascension you won't. It's just like rock.
I think Ascension is more miserable.
Yeah, right, exactly. Okay. And it's halfway between South America and Africa, basically. It's in the absolute.
They're not.
I mean, it's not far from St. Helena, where we sent Napoleon after Waterloo. And it's much less, and it's much less nice than St. Helena, which
could we not
quite
make,
pretty.
You know the Napoleonic forts that sort of sit in the middle of the ocean. Could we not build one close to an Arctic Circle somewhere?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but I think Ascension would essentially do the same thing, and it's a British island. So
I suppose it'd be cheaper than building like an offshore base.
Exactly, and it's a British island, so no one can say anything legally because they're on British territory still. It would be the most boring, bad place in the world. And as I say, I'd make sure it was surrounded with razor wire and guarded by some troops. And, even the British Army has enough soldiers to do that. You keep them there if they're there for 2 years. The more they want to appeal, the longer they'll spend on that fucking island in that fucking camp. And that will stop all these people coming.
Unless we did a deal with Trump and we found an Alaskan island somewhere. So I love the idea. It has to be like this cold and desolate place. But I see what you're saying.
It's even Mercy, and the fact that it's got a reasonable climate. In fact, it's quite hot in the summer. Is even better. You can't get any criticism for it that way. This is my point, is that anything that people raise in the crappy UN couldn't cause a problem, even though, really Britain can just veto anything in the UN because we're permanent members of the Security Council. This is why Starmer's bollocks about the British Indian Ocean Territory, the Chagos Islands, which is another military base, which the Royal Navy frequently uses, particularly when it's traveling to Australia and places. That's another reason why his excuse why Britain has to pay billions and billions every year to Mauritius to take the Chagos Islands is bullshit. It's because Britain could just veto that if we wanted to. We're allowed to, like all the other 5 members of the permanent members of the Security Council. And of course, this recently went to the House of Lords, and Labour withdrew it, surprisingly enough, because they thought the Lords were going to cause them problems.
Well, I don't understand. I mean, I know Keir Starmer's as a socialist, but I don't get the logic. I don't see the logic on it whatsoever, other than it was suggested by some UN panel somewhere.
Is he paid by the Chinese? Because I think that's perfectly possible. Mm-hmm. Or maybe he's being blackmailed by the Chinese via his Ukrainian rent boys. That's also perfectly possible.
Oh no, it's far simpler than that. And it's because Keir Starmer is an ideologue. He believes in human rights law in an almost religious way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And therefore, when the UN says something, it is like Moses coming down from the mountain with the 10 Commandments. You can't underestimate how much he believes in that stuff.
And of course, the UN was set up after World War II by the Americans to support the American world order, basically.
The other thing is, I mean, look, the native brown people on that island went, please don't do this. We don't be under Mauritius.
Mauritius has never had anything to do with it.
Exactly,
it's thousands of miles from Mauritius.
But the native brown people on that island are like, what the hell are you doing? We're happy the way things are. This is fantastic. This is paradise. We're governed by...
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And of course, the Chinese, we know, are in cooperation with the Mauritians to try and put a Chinese base there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even understand why Trump's not more against it than he is, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Well, it certainly paves way that we have far too many Chinese moles in our in politics, and Christ knows where. It's that's another terrifying aspect, really, isn't it?
I know I wanted to ask Aaron. Aaron, you've been saying for a while that you want to do something on the Fabian Society. That's something we should do, Aaron.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is a part of it.
Because Starmer's a Fabian, isn't he?
Yes, I don't think he's at the moment a member of the Fabian Society, but he was. And for example, when he in 2021, when he put out essentially his manifesto of what Starmerism is, it was published by the Fabian Society. And this is when I mentioned that about Starmer believing in human rights or like a religion. That's all a part of Fabian Socialism. It's an absolute article of faith. And so, do you understand why Starmer's doing what he's doing, why the government's doing what he's doing? They believe in this stuff. And as irrational as it seems to us, they are ideologues. And therefore, they absolutely believe that they will produce, in their terms, a better world.
I tell you what, Aaron, I tell you what, I know you want to do British espionage authors and so on, but I would sooner do the Fabian Society first as our history stream, if you're up for it. If you're up for it, let's do that, because I reckon that is an interesting topic. For anyone who doesn't know, by the way, in the chat, the Fabian Society, they have a stained glass panel where they literally have a wolf in sheep's clothing as part of their being, and they are an extreme left-wing, anti-British society, very left-wing, very anti-British, always have been. And I know Aaron has wanted to do a stream on that for a while. So, yeah, I'm more than happy to do that.
And they are everywhere. You're saying
Yes,
Starmer wasn't in,
yes.
but it's like one of those
Yeah.
things where you never really leave, right?
Yeah.
Starmer was, Blair was, Sadiq Khan was, just
Yes,
basically
it was.
I
everyone
don't
you
know
can think
if Lothar Sheffield is right, but he's saying London School of Economics,
Yes, it was.
founded by them.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's
yeah,
also
there
where
you
that
go.
stained glass window was as well.
Oh,
Well,
there you go, guys. There you go.
We'll speak. Talking on what Tharian was saying there, it wouldn't surprise me if they have a clause of membership, if they get power, that they're they get ejected officially, but unofficially they stay just so they have plausible deniability. I bet there's some kind of clause in it.
I doubt that, because one of the things people seem not to understand about Fabians is they don't disguise it. They've never disguised what they're doing.
Mhm. Not
They
anymore.
are
No.
they're always very open about what they're doing, and they've been like that since the start. So I don't
It's
think
because
they're
yeah.
covert about it.
Yeah, they book out St Paul's Cathedral and everything. They even just put some of their speeches online.
Yeah, they've got some really old video footage of some of the founding members, haven't they?
Yeah, listen. I mean, I'm sure some of you guys also follow Davey Starkey on YouTube and on X and what have you, and he's often talking about the destruction of our institutions. If you want to look at the destruction of British institutions, the Fabian Society is one of the first people to look at.
I do enjoy a good David Starkey monologue. I won't lie.
Yeah, 100%. In general terms, I agree with him. I mean, he's still a bit Sivnat by my standards, but for an old guy, he's come a long way.
Yeah, I don't hate Sivnats though.
I do, Mercy, and I do, because that's not going to save us. Look, I'm going to ask Aaron and Ataman about this, but I just think you've got to be tougher and harder than Sivnats will ever be in order to bring us to where we should be. I won't say back to where we should be, because I'm not sure we can go back. I don't think we can. We've got to go forward. But in order to make Britain British again, I think you've got to have a harder, tougher edge than Sivnats. Are you Aaron Adaman? What do you think?
Go on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
go on, Aaron.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think that I don't see. I mean, I kind of was happy when the whole Sivnet term disappeared, and I didn't have to say it or think about them again for a long time. And now it seems to have come back again in the last year. But they're not nationalists. I mean, nation sort of shares a lot of its roots with words like ethnos and NATO and other such terms. The whole sort of civic nationalist branch just seems like more leftist containment and subversion of actual sort of born natural concepts. So yeah, I don't. I mean, admittedly, a lot of these people are ultimately just our guys, and they're just a bit further up the road. But yeah, we need to plant a flag in the mud and make them come to us. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. I actually dislike both civic nationalism and ethno-nationalism terms, because they're both muddying the waters. If you're a nationalist, you support a nation which is populated by a unique people.
How about patriot, Aaron? Is that better?
Yeah. Or simply just a nationalist.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with you. You see, I think that, I was always a patriot. That's why I joined the fucking army at 18, and why all my male members of my family did pretty much the same thing for 100 years before I did. But to me, that's the natural way you should be. It's the natural way all British people used to be. We did our history stream last week about the 100 Days campaign, which was mainly the British Army with the help of their brothers from Canada and Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, what have you, because the French army had had huge mutinies the year before, and so you had to handle it very carefully. And not very many Americans had actually yet got to the front lines in France. So the 100 Days campaign in 1918, which defeated the German army, despite what the Germans believed in the 1920s and 30s, they were actually beaten, was mainly the British and Old Commonwealth forces who did it. And these guys were just patriots. I mean, it's like we said at the start of the stream when we were talking about the veteran who didn't think it was worth doing World War II. Those guys would be our guys if they were still around. Nearly all of them would be our guys. Even in Australia, look at the old World War I and World War II diggers, the Anzacs. They would have all been our guys.
Yeah.
Like 99% of them.
Well, it's part of the reason. Part of the reason I feel this way is I feel like I owe it to all the people who brought me to this point from the past.
100 Mercian. Totally agree.
I mean, and to go on from Aaron's point about the whole nationalist point of view, could you even? I mean, someone like Michael Gove, you could call him a civ nut. Is he even a nationalist?
No, not at all. You have to redefine the word nationalist to make him a nationalist. Simple as that.
Which is why they do redefine it all the time.
I don't know if any of you guys saw it, but I put that Peter Jackson documentary up. Peter Jackson, of course, made the brilliant Lord of the Rings trilogy. But he did this great documentary in 2018 called They Shall Not Grow Old, where he got loads of First World War film and colorized it and got it to the right speed and all that sort of stuff.
Added sounds and stuff,
yeah, and it's mostly interviews with veterans from World War I. And like the thing you get from listening to all of them, basically, is they went to war for Britain. They didn't go to war for some liberal idea or any bollocks. They went to war for Britain, basically. They were patriots. And if they were still alive, they'd be our guys almost to a man. Almost all of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is something that actually really does my nutting is people sit there, I mean, and they'll say like, oh, you know, people died for your right to vote. And it's like, no one really went to war over ideas back then. It was almost always for place and for kin and for things
and
like
for
that.
Their flag and for the belief in where they lived and their little village. And yeah, absolutely, mate. 100.
I mean, there was that famous letter of that soldier who sadly died, and it said something like, oh, I don't really care about, you know, Germany or European politics or stuff like that. I'm doing it because I want to protect, you know, my family and my village and you know, that sort of thing.
100%.
Yeah, the normal for every war, basically, always. It's just but it is something that hopefully historians will figure out what the fuck happened with the boomers, because their parents, all these people who did fighting, they're nothing like what. I don't know how they raised this generation, because they weren't in, you know, none of the people who did any of the fighting on either side were interested in any of this current shit we've got. And then
hippies, look at hippies in the 1960s and early 1970s.
It's just like, how did this happen though? You know, because for all history we have, you know, generations don't really change much, and then the boomers come along and just go, you know what, fuck everything that's come before. What about me?
It's weird. It's weird, Tharium, and I tell you, I'm not really the right guy to ask because I'm not quite a boomer. I'm almost a boomer. I'm not quite. I was born in 1965, which I think is a bit, 20 years beyond World War II is a bit late for being a boomer. But my father was born in 1933, so he was like pre-World War II, you know. And so I don't really get it. I don't. I've
Right, I know, right?
I've started
Yeah.
seeing women my age with tattoos on their leg.
Yeah.
You know, like women of 60, and as far as I'm concerned, a woman of 60 is like a little old lady. You know, she's not sexually interesting at all. And so I'm starting to see these little old ladies with tattoos, and I'm trying to think to myself, what the fuck were you thinking, woman? You know,
Like, I mean, like all of their parents would have been a bit like your dad. Your dad was just normal and like, oh no, fucking no, you don't, Missy. But yeah, just what happened. It's so weird.
It goes. I think about on this question, and the example I think of is I do think about British Leyland. I've mentioned this some streams a long time ago, and you think about British Leyland in the 70s. Who would have been the workers at that time? You would have been your upstart boomers, so very young boomers. Most of that workforce would have been the silent generation, the evacuee kids of the Second World War. And then there would have been a few of the GI greatest generation who actually fought in the war that were probably getting close to retirement at that time. And you think, I mean, okay, maybe the boomers, but I don't think the boomers would have been the majority of that workforce in the 70s. I think most of that workforce would have been the silent generation and greatest generation.
Don't forget one thing, Mercian. When you talk about the silent generation in Britain, those guys all did 2 years national service, all of them, like my dad did. My dad was guarding the Suez Canal zone in the 1950s.
Yeah.
Every one of those guys was in the Army, the Navy, or the RAF for 2 years.
But my point is going to be that they talk about like all the strikes that happened in British Leyland, and I think about the type of men that they would have been. I can't accept that they struck out over nothing. There must have been some really bad management shit going on in that British Leyland at the time.
There was a lot of bad union shit, Mercian, as well. I got to say, I'm just about old enough to remember the 70s, and there was some bad union shit going on.
Do you think
like
it was,
there were times when the bins weren't being emptied, when dead people couldn't be buried because of unions. Like these days, it's fashionable to slag off Margaret Thatcher because she was so anti-union. But you have to remember that the leadership, not the members, but the leadership of the British trade unions back then, they were out and out commies, and they were really bad.
This was basically my point. It took communist subversion. That's my point. It took a worm tongue to do it, because I can't imagine all those workers did that without a worm tongue.
Yeah, but it was set up though, Mercy. It was set up. If you want to see when the British car industry, just like the British aircraft industry, by the way, was good, there were competing companies. But when the Labour Party in the 60s nationalised everything, and they basically got rid of Rover and Morris and Austin and Triumph and all the rest of it, and made them into this conglomerate British
worst thing that ever happened to the British car industry.
Yeah,
because
there was no competition. The bosses couldn't say to their workers, "We've got to do this, guys, because we've got to be better than these other companies anymore," because there was no competition anymore.
And the worst thing about it is the legacy it's left the British car industry. I mean, you ask an American about what they think about British car, it all comes from British Leyland.
I'll tell you what, Mercian can turn any topic into something about cars.
Do you know what? Literally,
I'm only joking, mate. I do see your point.
You could be bringing up the Roman Empire. I will find a way.
Something about chariots, no doubt. But yeah, but yeah, it's you're right, mate. And it was like, people will talk about the mines in the 70s, right? And Britain still has some of the best coal in the world, particularly in Wales. Some of the best, most efficient, cleanest burning coal in the world. And the fact that we're not using it, and we don't have really good fully automated mines providing really first-class jobs for British people and Welsh people in that is just a disgrace. But the people like Scargill were absolutely out and out communists, and they didn't give a shit about Britain. They didn't really give a shit about the mine workers. They cared about communism.
You could argue. I don't know when you would argue it's stuff. Most people talk about the demise of Britain from Blairite, but you could make a case for this period in the 70s. Anything post. Some people go as far back as the early 1900s when we started to decline. I mean, I can't really, I was born in the 80s. I can't really say when Britain started to decline. If you ask me, a millennial, it started with Blair, but it probably predates all that.
No, it started with the end of World War II for sure.
Can I just reply to Raw Biscuits for a second?
Go for it, mate. Go for it.
So you asked about me what I think about the charging EVs pay by mile. It was always going to happen, and I don't know why anyone who had an EV car...
It's on purpose. Mercy.
Yeah.
One of the things that is the ambition of our so-called elites is to make ordinary people like all of us and the people in the chat not be able to travel locally with your car, and also they want to stop you. They're going to limit how much you can fly. They won't limit how much they can fly, but they'll limit how much you can based on your carbon footprint. I guarantee it. And
I do.
Bring in a digital ID, and it will just make it vastly easier.
I do love the stuff with the electric cars, though. It's like you were promised this: get your electric car, to avoid all these things, and you're doing good for the environment. Actually, no, you get fucked as well.
And it was always on the cards. We've because I've been in the anti-EV. Well, I'm not anti-EV.
Guys, I can't do this, but I'm sure you can, Mercian. Lithium batteries require enormous amounts of resources, but they just don't come from Britain. They come from the third world.
It goes around the world before it even gets assembled into a battery. So it probably be mined in Africa, then transported to somewhere like Japan to be refined, and then transported again to somewhere like Canada to be put into a battery form, and then shipped off to whatever factory in the world it needs to be assembled. It goes around the world bloody twice.
Almost exactly the same as wind turbines. It's funny that, isn't it?
Yeah. Whereas in relation to how much distance internal combustion has to go, it's not in the same leagues. That's why an electric car, I forget the mileage it has to do, something like 40,000 miles, the first 40,000 miles to offset its carbon footprint.
And that's just assuming you're getting completely carbon-free energy going into
exactly, yeah.
Which you're not.
You're not, no.
And of course, trees and all plants kind of like carbon dioxide. They like it. Like, these huge greenhouses in places like the Netherlands actually put extra CO2 into the greenhouses to make the stuff grow quicker. Yeah. It's all a bullshit lie, basically, this man-made global warming shit. It's just a lie.
Yeah, I would believe them more about the whole carbon thing if I picked on carbon monoxide rather than carbon dioxide. Nature has no use for carbon monoxide, so if we reduce that, I'd be like, that's fair enough. But they've picked on carbon dioxide. Makes no sense to me.
Look, guys, look at the ice stuff in the Arctic and the Antarctic, and we've had horror scare stories about this for 40 years at this stage, certainly 35 years. And it's just nonsense. It's, the ice this year was pretty much the same as it was last year and the year before and the year before. It's just bullshit. They're just lying.
But do you see Bill Gates has come out and saying, maybe global warming won't be a big disaster for humankind? Oh, really? Now you say this. Thanks, Bill.
A 2-degree temperature rise in Britain is not going to cause anything bad to happen to Britain. And in fact, that would probably it would probably take us to about where it was when the Romans ran Britain, when you used to be able to grow grapevines in Britain and produce wine.
And that 2 degrees, that's on their very highest.
That's the best they can get to. Yeah, it's just
yeah.
bullshit. It's utter bullshit, basically.
Why do we have to base the climate science on stuff that happened 50, 60 years ago? 50, 60 years ago, the climate was perfect, and any deviation is just wrong.
Yeah, it's just a lie. It's just a lie. Lothar Sheffield mentions Vinland, which is what they used to call Nova Scotia in Canada, I believe, where the Vikings went to. But yeah, it's just bollocks. It's a lie. 2 degrees temperature change is not going to end the world. It will actually probably improve it a little bit.
Yeah.
It'll make it a bit hotter in Africa. Well, big deal, but it will still be quite wet if they don't chop all their trees down. It's just nonsense, you know.
Well, I've said this before. Let's assume it's as apocalyptic as the climate catastrophists say it is. Do you know what would be good in a situation like that? Free, easy, accessible energy.
And nuclear is the most sensible way to go with that, if that's what you want to do.
Well, be careful what you wish for. Those nuclear plants will have to be run by Shaniquas.
Well, that's the problem, Alman. Yeah, you do have to have competency at the same time. But then, you know, build a bridge, build an airliner, run air traffic control, all of those things you need competency. You know, and Africa.
I mean, I think the thing is, in Britain, you are actually the nuclear industry does actually require that. See, this is one of the funny things in the UK. The nuclear industry requires that it be manned by British people holding British citizenship. And to kind of double back slightly on something we said earlier, like actually when they say, "Oh, this person's born here" or "that person's born here," that often, even when they're born here, most of the time they just have indefinite leave to remain. They still don't have citizenship.
Yeah.
So if you go and ever go to a nuclear power plant, one of the things you find is that the workforce there is very, very white and English. It's in stark contrast to other industries.
I got into trouble on X last week because there was a Sri Lankan guy who said, "I worked on British nuclear submarines for 15 years, right, in the Royal Navy." And I said to him, "You should go back to Sri Lanka and help your own country." And loads of people slagged me off for that.
Yeah.
But it's my honest view. He obviously is a really highly qualified, good bloke, but he shouldn't be in England or Britain. He should be in Sri Lanka helping the Sri Lankans.
Yeah.
And what is there anything bad about that? I don't think there is.
No.
I don't think I was insulting him. I was just telling him the truth. Go back to Sri Lanka, look after Sri Lankans. I mean, that's what Zia Yusuf should also do, in my opinion.
Have you heard of that rapper? Have you heard of that rapper Akon?
Yeah,
I mean, like he is. I mean, on one hand, he is just full of shit, but on the other hand, he is actually sort of wants to sort of try and improve Africa a bit from America, but his plans are, don't really pan out. But at least there's the thought there. He wants Wakanda to be real.
Yes, he went from Wakanda forever to Wakanda never.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can see this in reality. Look at the American-made. Yeah, thank you, Mercy. Liberia, which is next to Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone was established as a British colony, and it's where all of the slaves who the Royal Navy freed in the 19th century, you know, the anti-slavery patrols, they were all sent to Sierra Leone. and the British ran it. There was a British governor there, and it was British until, I don't know, early 1970s, late 1960s. And in fact, Tony Blair sent the British armed forces there in the 2000s because there was a rebel group who crossed over from Liberia who were mass raping and chopping off people's arms and legs. And Tony Blair, in one of the few reasonable things he ever did, sent the Royal Marines and the Parachute Regiment there, and they stopped those arseholes very quickly, of course. But from Royal Navy carriers and ships that he then scrapped, of course. But anyway, Liberia was the American version of this. But of course, because it was the American version, the Americans never ran it themselves. They just sent American former slaves there. And the first thing the American former slaves did when they got to Liberia was to enslave the locals. That was the first thing they did.
Yeah.
No lie, it's a historical fact. They did.
Yeah, in fact, they went further than that. Essentially, what they did, Liberia from its establishment up until the 1980s was run by the descendants of those people, and they essentially recreated the antebellum South in Africa.
Yep, 100%, but with black people in charge of other black people.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
Makes you believe in phrenology, doesn't it?
Oh, that's real.
Or race, perhaps.
That's real. That's very real.
Or race, because I think race is real for sure. But yeah, it's it's like the British Empire was the biggest empire the world has ever seen, and probably ever will see. But it was pretty good on the whole. The Brits basically let people get on with it. We stopped a few things like, chucking 18-year-old widows on Hindu funeral pyres. We stopped the Indians doing that. We got rid of the thugs who used to strangle Indian travellers on roads, because that wasn't really very good either. But generally speaking, we just let people get on with it if they weren't hurting anyone. But yeah. But I'm a Brit, so I'm biased. Yeah.
I got really pissed off with an Indian driver the other day. I was coming out of a local supermarket where you can't get two cars through the driveway for some reason, even though there's two lanes. And an old lady, knowing this, was obviously local, indicating left to pull in, and slowed down for me to pull out so she could get in. And then this lady, Asian driver, just overtook her, and I was just incensed. I nearly chased her down. It's sort of like you. I know she didn't break any laws of the road, but I was like, that is so
politeness, mate. Politeness.
Yeah, I was just incensed. I was like, you. And they put your own racial slur in there. It's like your own racial slur, your inconvenience. I was
Canada, mate, right? Canada now has a reenactment Sikh regiment from the First World War, right? But in the First World War, you know how many Sikhs joined the Canadian Army?
Probably not that many.
10. 10 guys.
Oh.
Right, I don't know how, but they did. I mean, British Empire, all that bollocks. But 10, a whole 1-0, and there's now there's probably more Canadian Sikh reenactors. There is probably about 20 times more Canadian Sikh reenactors than there were actual Canadian Sikh soldiers. This is the world we live in now. It's fantasy land.
Indians especially seem very capable of just embracing nonsense.
Yeah, well, they grab onto things like the Black Trumpeter for Henry VIII. They'll ban below. I'm also under the impression that Anne Boleyn was black. I don't know where I got that from.
Yeah, I saw pictures of it. Oh, that I forgot to mention last time we brought up Yasuke, the Black Samurai. And one thing that people started doing was making AI, like old antique photos, just with AI of black samurais. They fell for it. The people you expect just fell for it completely, going, you see this? We was samurai. And
we was kangs. Yeah, right. It's like they pretend to be like Cleopatra was an African. Yeah. I mean, Cleopatra wasn't even an Egyptian. She was a Macedonian Greek princess, queen eventually. But she wasn't even Egyptian, let alone Black African. You know, and in case you didn't notice, guys, you know, even the Egyptians today, who are vastly different from the Egyptians in Roman times because of the Muslims' invasions, even today they're not Black Africans. They don't look like Black Africans.
I do like the Black Africans visiting Egypt and sort of saying, "You've stolen this from us."
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah.
Have you heard of the Tartarian conspiracy theory?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
This is funny. Basically, it's the idea that, because you look at the old buildings, like in America, you got the tech Capitol building and stuff, and they don't make stuff like that anymore. So people realize, I bet there was another civilization that the oil barons went and completely erased from history. And of course, the Tartarians, royal family, were all black, of course, and they had free energy, free technology. It was just paradise. But then the greedy oil barons somehow managed to overthrow them and completely erase them from all history.
Hang on, I'm trying to get the right one up here. There you go. Yeah, she was a Ptolemy, as Baron Badger says. That's Cleopatra.
Yeah.
She was the last Ptolemy, pretty much. But yeah, so I don't know. We live in a world of bullshit on the mainstream media. I mean, another example is the Ukraine war. I mean, if you believe the Western NATO bullshit about the Ukraine war, Ukraine's winning. I mean, it's funny how they lose more and more territory every single week if they're winning. It's the only war I've ever seen where the country losing more territory every week is somehow winning. But honestly, NATO, the West, and the British mainstream media, and largely the American mainstream media, they try and pretend this. Even though every week you can see there's a bit more Russian gain every single week. But obviously the Russians are only doing that with human wave tactics, with people armed with nothing but shovels. Yeah, right.
It seems to me what they're playing is the toddler playing card, and that I didn't want it anyway, so they win anyway. I didn't want that land anyway.
Well, eventually, that's going to have to be their thing, because eventually Russia's going to win. I mean, and Russia will win basically when Putin decides we've taken enough territory. The Ukrainian big counterattack a couple of years ago was a complete failure. Like NATO had basically totally rebuilt the Ukrainian
No, man,
army.
it's still coming. Any day now, the country.
Right. Except there's no more equipment to send them because Britain has 89 105mm field guns left. Well, are we going to send those to Ukraine?
Do you guys believe that the biggest reason why this war is happening is to thin out the Russian troops?
From the West point of view, perhaps. Although I think it's backfired because the Russian economy is doing better now than it was before the sanctions.
I think,
and the Russian military is far more powerful than it was before the war.
I wouldn't know powerful, but it is tested now. It knows what it's doing more. But also,
and it's bigger. It's actually bigger, Farian. Like, unlike the British Army, which has shrunk by about since the war started, the British Army is about 15 or 16,000 men and far too many women, smaller than it was. The Russian army is like almost twice the size it was at the start of the war.
There
And
is
mostly from volunteers, by the way. The
I'm gonna,
Russian army gets loads of volunteers because they get quite well paid. Like if I was a young bloke, and obviously I'm not, but if I was a young bloke, I would probably join the Russian army because the volunteers in the Russian army get a pretty damn good deal. Like quite a lot of money. They get paid a lot more than I did as a British soldier back in the 80s.
What,
I'm
even
gonna call it a night now. I'm gonna head off.
Oh.
Talk to you all later.
Adam, before you go,
Yeah.
mate, can we do our entropy stuff just in case there's anything interesting? Let me have a look. If there isn't, then that's fine. All right, there's no questions, Adam, no worries. They're just people saying fine.
All right. Okay. Talk to you all later.
Many thanks for joining us, Adam, and you're always most welcome, mate.
Yeah, no worries. See ya. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Adam is a working man, so he has to get up in the morning. So yeah.
With Ukraine, there's also the idea that the American Empire does seem to have used it as a chance to attack Europe, like cut off Germany.
Yeah. Who does anyone here not think the Americans blew up the Nord Stream pipeline?
I know, right? It was so laughable seeing, especially in the American press, them going, "Yes, Russia did this."
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, sure they did. Yeah.
They can just turn off the taps. Why would they do that? But yeah, and it's that's I mean, Germany has just been so fucked by that, losing their cheap energy that they built their entire economy on.
Yep. 100%. And now, like the submissive bastards of the Germans have been since World War II, they're actually licking the US rear end. Yeah. As the US drags them even further down and destroys their industry.
It seems also like Trump seems to have been given the briefing on what Ukraine's actually about, and he's all on board. And so now they're just going to be, we will now have to just buy more arms from America, which will then go to Ukraine. But he's sort of shifting down to Europe.
No, Trump's even more sensible. Trump and Starmer could actually be mates because Starmer gets the British taxpayer to pay for giving away the British Indian Ocean territory to Mauritius and China, right? He gets the British taxpayer to pay billions every year for 99 years for that. Yeah. And Trump is even cleverer because what Trump has done is he's getting the Europeans to pay for American weapons to be sent to Ukraine.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's
just insanity. If you were any sort of a patriot, you would just say, no, fuck this.
Yeah. But it's, it's working for America. It's not working for us, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, and of course, Starmer, we all saw Starmer and Zelensky embracing. We all know that Starmer likes Ukrainian rent boys, and Zelensky, of course, is a Ukrainian Jewish former comedian whose most famous act was playing a piano with his dick. But he's the new Winston Churchill, which to some degree I can kind of see, actually.
The whole worst thing about the Ukrainian rent boys is sort of like, has he not seen Ukrainian women?
Ooh, no, don't.
Well, yeah, but that wouldn't help Starmer. I mean,
I know that, but somehow that annoys me more. I don't know.
And don't forget, all those Ukrainian women are now overseas, and mostly on OnlyFans. So I mean, listen, guys, if you want to know about the Ukrainian war, you can go watch videos on X, right? Taken secretly, because otherwise you'll get locked up in prison by the SBU. I think it's the SBU. That's the Ukrainian secret police. Of dads being dragged off the street and their wife is screaming and their two kids are crying as the SBU secret police guys shove the Ukrainian dad into a van, to send him for like 3 weeks training, and then he goes and gets killed under the Russian guns because the Russians have vastly more artillery. This is what's happening in Ukraine, and yet you can still get British generals, British admirals, British air marshals, of course, British political morons, and the mainstream media, and the same thing in America, saying, "Oh no, Ukraine isn't losing, even though they're losing more territory every week. Ukraine's somehow winning." This is just bollocks, guys. You got to use your brain.
Earlier on in the war, I remember the coverage of the Russian forced recruitment, because they were drafting people as well by force, and they're making making a fuss about that, but Ukraine doing exactly the same thing at the same time. Just no, that's fine. That's not inhumane when Ukraine does it.
And you know, Zelensky is the world's most famous cocaine addict.
Do you remember this?
But he's the new Winston Churchill.
Do you remember that?
Of course, Winston Churchill liked his brandy, so you know. Whatever.
Do you remember that time on the train? There was Macron, Starmer, and I think some EU guy, and it looks like, and some cameras roll in, and it looks like they've just been caught sniffing cocaine.
Yep.
Starmer goes and like pockets it.
Yep. Could well be true. I mean, also, there's more and more evidence that the little old lady that Macron is married to is apparently a little old man. But anyway, there's more and more evidence of that. And somehow this doesn't raise alarm with people. You know, the people who run us are vile. They're just vile.
Yeah. I mean,
I think Radiohead once sang "They Don't Speak for Us."
I mean, like
they don't, but
they
claim they do. Every time the British government or the Ministry of Defence or the British Army or anyone puts anything on X, on Twitter, they say, "We stand with Ukraine." And I keep sending them a message saying, "Speak for yourself." Because I don't stand for Ukraine. Like, Ukraine has always been famous for a few things. It's been famous for its corruption, right? Because it's the most corrupt country in Europe. It's famous as a center for the sex slave trade. Like, loads of girls used to disappear from Ukraine to go to various, like brothels and places around the world. And it's also famous that if you're a gay couple and you're not allowed to adopt a baby, and you shouldn't be allowed to adopt a baby if you're a gay couple, in my opinion, go to Ukraine, pay money, you'll get a baby. That's what Ukraine is famous for. And this is the Western standard bearer that we should all support. It's just disgusting, to be honest.
And the leftist cope about like the Black Sun troops they have over there.
Oh yeah, there's no Ukrainian neo-Nazis, mate. There's nobody with Nazi swastikas tattooed on them.
I was misinformed. I apologise.
Yeah, no, don't be silly, mate. No, and even if there are, it's excusable if it's Ukraine, because Putla,
is worse than neo-Nazis. I can see that. I can see that. Yeah.
Me and you are far right, Mercian, but those actual guys with swastikas tattooed on them in Ukraine, they're freedom fighters.
Oh well, they're probably going to pride marches in the spare time as well, I'm sure.
Of course they are. Of course they are. It's like the gay and tranny supporters of the Palestinians. I mean, listen, I'm no friend of Israel, all right? I don't give a fuck about Israel. I just want to stay out of their barbaric tribal wars. But the Palestinians, if you were a gay guy or a tranny, you'd end up being chucked off a 15-story building very, very quickly if you went to Palestine.
Of all the Middle Easterners, they're probably the worst.
Yeah, it's just we live in fantasy land. These guys,
Yeah.
those guys. It's like you said earlier, Tharium. Like Anne Boleyn was a black woman. You know, right?
Yeah.
We live in fantasy land. There were black soldiers in the Norman army and in the Anglo-Saxon army fighting at Hastings in 1066. We live in fantasy land. There's no such thing as historical truth anymore. It's just what we want to tell you.
What worries me about sort of the generations, the Zoomers, the Alphas, probably the Bravos, especially as AI takes over and people make these "we are Kangs" memes about, like, they'll make a video about a Roman centurion, and I can well believe the idiots of the future believe in that.
They already fall for AI. Like AI is already annihilating people with this stuff.
Yeah, and it hasn't dawned on them that there was no video cameras back then at all.
No.
So, like,
Yeah.
Intelligence is going down, Mercian. Don't forget that.
it's
And
true.
partly it's going down because of mass immigration. I mean, that's going to lower your average intelligence because you're importing people with 80, 90 IQs. But British average intelligence was about 110 in 1914, and it's gone down ever since. And also look at our so-called education system.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It was bad enough when I was a kid, and it's vastly worse now.
I mean, you're getting a lot of kids going in, starting school, and they don't even know how to use toilets now. Just
Oh my
they're
God.
so backwards in their development. A lot of these kids these days.
But they will learn how to go to a mosque and pray to Mecca. So
Of course.
Yeah.
who needs toilets when you can pray to Mecca? But yeah, it's pretty weird.
I will say this: number one, everyone thought that the younger generations would be more tech savvy, but the average millennial is more tech savvy than a Zoomer or even an Alpha, because all they ever use is their mobile phones, and quite frankly, that's baby's first computer, really. And second of all, I can consider myself to be quite a bright chap, especially where I live, but I'm not sure I could pass an 11 plus from 100 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, I did O levels when they were quite hard. You know, they got rid of them long after I left because they were too difficult. Presumably mostly for immigrants, but I mean, you know.
Yeah. They were very racist.
Yeah, because they were hard and you had to know stuff. Same with A levels, they got rid of them because they used to be too difficult. So now you get people going to university who can't write a sentence. You know? It's like,
I hate to bring up Cars and Andrew Tate in the same sentence, but and I think it was Andrew Tate who made the reason we have speed limits at 30 miles an hour is not because it's safe, it's because some people just can't drive any faster than 30 miles an hour. So in response, we all have to drive 30 miles an hour.
I don't know about that, mate. I tell you what, when I was a little boy, I was probably 6, maybe 7. I ran out between two cars on a London road where there was a 30 mile an hour speed limit. And the young British chap in the car, I can't remember what it was now, something like a Ford Zephyr or what have you. He managed to stick his brakes on in enough time to stop. And I was unfortunate because my dad happened to be looking out of our front window at the time and he saw it. And when I got home, boy, did he whack me. Because he was so scared. I nearly got killed, you understand?
Yeah.
My dad said to me later when he calmed down, he said, if that hadn't have been a young bloke with quick reactions, you would have been dead as a fucking doornail.
The other part of it is, you know, in the highway code about the braking distance and how it's all calculated. You know, it's based on the braking performance of a Ford Zephyr.
Wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, I mean that was a pretty big British car back then, so that would make some sense.
Yeah, it's
My dad had one of those at one stage. What was the other one? There was the Zephyr, and there was another one with the same sort of name, and I can't remember what it was called.
So I've got a bit of a black spot for Fords of the 60s. I know the Court. It wouldn't have been the Cortina.
Zodiac, thank you.
Cortina.
Sonny Jim's got it in the chat.
Zodiac
was the other one. They were both fairly big for British cars back then.
Yeah, I know the braking distance in the highway code is based on that, but most modern cars can brake in half that time. I know the reaction time will vary from person to person, but the actual performance of cars could way outbrake a Zephyr, even big SUVs. And
but you know that they've got like computer assisted braking and all sorts of things going on these days. But like I said, I get why there's a 30-mile-an-hour limit in towns. I think the 20-mile-an-hour limit is pretty fucking stupid. And having it outside towns is fucking ridiculous, frankly. Where you can see a fair way in front of you.
Don't our speed limits have something to do with Carroll Shelby coming here, and then in some custom car he'd done up, he was going like 200 miles an hour on the motorway or something?
We didn't have speed limits on the motorways. And that's why we've got speed limits on the motorways. Now, that when the motorways were first put with, they had very much an autobahn kind of speed limit to them until Carroll Shelby did what he did.
Well, I can say I've never driven faster than 150 miles an hour on British motorway, but you know.
Obviously, when it was still autobahn rules.
No, I did that in the 90s, mate. But yeah, I was. My son was ill, and I was in Bristol. I had to get back to London. So
there was actually a Canadian comic. I forget his name, but he sort of said along the lines of. So someone asked me, "What do you think the speed limit of our motorways are?" And he goes, "I don't know, 110." 70 miles an hour. Fuck me. No way. No kidding.
yeah. Well, at one stage in America, they went down to 50, I think. 50 miles an hour at one stage.
There are places where it's 50. The flyover of the M5 from the M6 is 50 now. It used to be 70.
I'm told by Billy Parker it was 55. Okay, fair enough. But I know America went down very low at one stage. I think during the oil crisis.
Oh, you were talking about America. Sorry, I was talking about motorways. So there's
which in America is ridiculous. I mean, a bit like Australia. You know, it's such a huge place. Like for me to drive from where I am now to Sydney is like I don't know, 10 hours.
But again,
10 hours.
You got to think about the performance of American cars. Now, they were very good at making cars go fast, very good, but in a straight line. The other thing they never really bothered about is the brakes. And the Americans do cheap out where they can, and they cheap out on the brakes. Any European or Japanese car, weight for weight, will always outbrake an American car. It's
but
part of the reason
they're usually lighter, though, Mercy. And if you
even pound for pound, that they'll outbrake an American car.
I don't know. I was always quite fond of Mustangs. I thought they were.
God, I love American cars. I have a lot of flair, but American cars are fairly cheap. Right, but they cut corners in specific places. So, like refinement, they're not as refined as like if you did a trip in a car built in the 70s or the 60s, after 100 miles, you'd know about it. But if you got into a modern car, 100 miles, you don't feel it as much. That's refinement. But American cars never really got over the refinement. Part of that is their roads are a lot better than ours as well. They don't need to spend money on refinement. Basically,
This is
Americans
true,
skip
yeah.
where they can. So refinement because their roads are better, and braking because their roads are straight and you can see for miles.
Well, look, I mean, my two favorite cars are short wheelbase Land Rovers, not the modern ones, and the Jaguar XJS. So I mean, you know, I'm not saying they're the best cars. They're my favorite.
No, but we'll all have our types of cars, and we'll have our things. I mean, I have a thing for I'm a big rally fan, so I have a thing for the Subaru Imprezas. And you think being Japanese, they're really reliable cars. They're really unreliable. You've got to know to look after those. But I have a real soft spot for them.
Fair enough. All right, guys. Anything anybody else wants to bring up?
I was going to say on that. I wonder how the German autobahn is doing now, because it's very rules based. How you've got to drive on it, and of course now they've got all these
no speed limit though, Farron.
Yeah, but they've got lots of rules and how you overtake and stuff, and now they've got all these new Germans who don't give a damn about any of that stuff. I'm wondering what the state of it. What the state of it is.
You think because Germans were very disciplined.
Yeah, it works. Like the autobahn works for Germans. Stick the Indians on it. Ooh, I don't know about that.
That's a question you'd have to pose to the Germans, to be honest with you. Anyone want to?
Aaron, anything you wanted to bring up?
Not really.
All right, Mercy, and I'll say this to you, mate. Bless me. At some stage, we should do a history of the British car industry stream as a history stream, because that would be quite interesting, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't have much to say in it, but you will, I'm sure.
I've got to do a bit of research myself, because I'd like to start with the Genesis first of all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You'd have to go way back to the late 1890s, early 90s.
Yeah. So apparently, our industry for the motor vehicle started in 1895. Believe it or not.
Sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right. And of course, Rolls Royce quickly became a big deal.
But I'm more into the engineering side of things than anything else. So I mean, I'd like to. I've already done a bit of preliminary investigation into everything.
I just think it would be interesting to do the British car industry, like from like you say, the late 1890s, like to today, when there isn't much of one anymore. But like
and
so
how
much
that came to be.
Other British industry, like so much else British industry, you know. In 1945, we had great aircraft manufacturers and great car manufacturers and great railway engine manufacturers, and now we have sweet fuck all. Those.
I mean, planes especially, like the V bombers and stuff. Just wow. Like our post-war planes were amazing.
Yeah, Hawker Hunter, English Electric, Lightning, English Electric, Canberra. English Electric, by the way, were a locomotive maker originally. As you say, the Avro Vulcan and Handley Page. Crikey, I'm trying to remember what it was called.
Valiant, I think, or Victor.
Valiant, Victor. Thank you. It was the Victor. The Valiant was the other V-bomb.
Yeah.
But that was the least advanced one. But Britain used to be able to compete with the best in the world. And then in 1958 or 1959, Duncan Sandys, who was a conservative, in air quotes, said, no, there's not going to be manned aircraft anymore. So it's all going to be missiles. So therefore, we're basically going to close down all British aircraft development. And the only one that went forward after that was the Harrier, which was kind of successful. If you think about it.
I mean, and the thing with that is we don't even have the missiles to show for it either.
No, we don't have the missiles. I mean, the RAF did bring in the Bloodhound for a while, but that's all gone. It's all out of date. We still have some Rapier. Actually, we probably don't now because I think we gave the last of them to Ukraine. But that was still going very recently, and we were using those in 1982. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Weird.
We don't have a lot. There's not a lot of VTOL. I mean, I know the F-35 is a VTOL plane, but that mechanism seems really complicated compared to what we came with Harrier.
Yes, it's got an extra engine that is basically dead weight, which the Harrier didn't have because you could redirect the engines. You can't do that on an F-35. So the F-35B, which the British use, and we have to use because it's the only plane that fast jet that can take off from Queen Elizabeth class aircraft carrier. It carries around an engine which it only uses for takeoff and occasionally for landing. So yeah.
And any aerospace engineer would tell you that's a stupid idea.
Yes, indeed they would.
Apart from the engineer that came up with it, obviously.
Over the best part of a 15 years development cycle that went way over budget, and yeah, all of that stuff. And of course, stealth, which is part of it. For the F-35 as a whole, it's a frontal stealth. It doesn't really work from the side and the back.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work if you carry any external stores.
No.
And surprisingly, our potential enemies have been working on radars that can see it. And in due course, they're going to be able to see it. And it's a waste of fucking time. But, you know, these things have been like this since men started chucking rocks at each other and hitting each other with sticks. There's, you know, one side advances, the other side advances, attack advances, defense advances. It's always like that. But, you know, whatever. All right, guys, let's go through our Entropy super chats. Lux Life sends us $15 and says, best regards, gentlemen, and thanks for the Sane. Thank you so much, Lux Life. That's most welcome, mate. Rud Three Trees, who's a fairly regular contributor, also for US $15, says, evening, guys. Anyone playing EU5? I didn't even know what EU5 is. Anyone know what that is?
Europa Universalis.
That's probably talking about the engine regulations.
No.
Oh, is it not?
No, it's Europa Universalis 5. It's the map game. Like
No,
Oh, right.
that sounds
Okay.
right.
I thought they were talking about the European specifications on engine emissions. My apologies. Always comes back to cars with me, doesn't it?
You could go on about Augustus, the Roman Emperor, and talk about cars. Gerin sends us $5 and just says hello. And finally, let me try and pronounce this properly. Parakishit Patel sends us $5 and says hello, Saz.
Oh yeah, I saw
Indian accent. No, I can't do.
But
anyway, guys, thank you for the Lux Life.
I was just going to say,
Kieran and Parashit Patel. Thanks, guys.
Parikshit Patel.
Much
I saw him give a super chat on Academic Agent's channel. Academic Agent didn't believe he was Indian either. Parikshit, I am the only one who believes you.
I don't think he's Indian either, mate.
He's definitely Indian. 100%.
I doubt it. I doubt it. I really do. But anyway, yeah, whatever. All right. Aaron, anything you would like to plug, sir, in terms of your channel, etc.?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be on my friend Raz's channel tomorrow, where he's decided he wants to interview me. So if you want to hear me answer, well, I'm not sure what questions he's going to ask me, but if you want to hear me answer questions, you can go there. And also on Wednesday, I will be continuing with my ongoing review of the Sharp TV series with a review of Sharp's Honor, and my channel is called Aaron James Hook.
Cool, Aaron, and I will put a link to your channel under the in a pinned comment after the stream. Mercian or Tharium, anything you would like to plug, guys?
I earlier today I did a stream with Dino Bane, which you can find on Dino Bane's channel. We discussed about very similar things. You can subscribe to my channel. Maybe if I get enough pressure, I'll start making videos, or you can follow me on Twitter, Mercian303.
Tharium, anything?
Yeah, just
other
Twitter,
than
really.
the thing that shall not be mentioned.
Other than just Twitter, yeah. You can follow me there.
Mercian, the chap that you talked to me about earlier, like, I'll have him on the stream. I just didn't see your note until I got.
No. I knew you wouldn't see. I knew you wouldn't see it. You can have him on, but you follow my advice. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, no, I will do that. Don't worry. But I was on Aaron's channel earlier today when we were reviewing W.E. Johns, I think, the guy who wrote Biggles, his first book, The Camels Are Coming. And I was on that, and then I had a couple of hours that I tried to get some sleep, and then I got up about, 30 minutes before this stream started, because it's only 10:58 a.m. on Sunday for me. So, and this was a long stream for us. We've gone nearly 3 hours. So, yeah. All right. Thank you very much to my guests, Adaman, Mercian, Tharium, and Aaron Hook. There will be a link to Aaron Hook's channel later on under the description of this stream. We will be back on Wednesday, and I think Ataman and I will be doing the Franklin expedition to the Arctic, which is quite an interesting story. And I like it because it involves the Royal Navy, and it's even got an Australian connection because Franklin was the Lieutenant Governor of Tasmania, or Van Diemen's Land as it was then called, before he took part in this expedition to Canada. And he was a reformer. He tried to make life better for the convicts. And also he fought at Trafalgar, which we frequently streamed about. He was one of Nelson's officers. So he was a good chap. And I think that's going to be our Wednesday history stream. And in the meantime, don't let the bastards grind you down. Go well, people. Oh, hang on. Wait. I've got to stop. I'm supposed to play us a tune before we close, and I will, because I like this tune. And it's from a good channel called Patriotic Archive. So, sorry. I'm becoming amateur hour. I must be tired. Okay. Let's do this. Oh, there we go. See if it works anyway. Pom. There we go. All right. And that, by the way, was from Patriotic Archive. It's obviously Hearts of Oak, which is the march of the British Royal Navy. And the picture for that is the Dutch Admiral de Winter surrendering to the Scottish Royal Navy Admiral Adam Duncan at the Battle of Camperdown. And Camperdown was one of the hardest fought British naval battles in the Napoleonic Wars. And it was one that Nelson told Admiral Duncan that he was jealous that he wasn't there because it was such a hard fought battle. So yeah, that was cool. Do check out Patriotic Archive. He's got a excellent channel. All right, guys, don't let the bastards grind you down. We'll be back on Wednesday, hopefully with the expedition video with Atman. And other than that, we'll see you next week. Go well, and thank you to my guests again.